Here's what I was going to ask you. You and your dad hunt a lot of the same ground?
Sometimes.
And he's running cameras?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so does it ever happen, like you guys are Sunday evening dinner, he's like, hey, Cud, check this guy out.
Oh, dude,
shows you a 180. Will you look at it?
Dude,
will you consider it?
That fucker wouldn't show me a 180. You kidding me? He's a fucking...
The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Deer Grow.
Man, it's almost food plot season, Jared, and Deer Grow is one of those products that has really changed the way that we plant food plots and the success we've seen from them.
No doubt. I've been, trying to plant food plots my entire whitetail hunting career, which is a little shorter than yours. But the minute that I started, or that I realized that I could get Deer Grow back into some of these remote plots where I couldn't get lime or fertilizer, especially in the 50-pound bag, format. Mm-hmm. So everything was changed. I could get into these spots moving forward with a backpack sprayer, and that's since escalated to these 40 or 60 gallon sprayers, and we're doing upwards of 5 to 10 acre food plots just with Deer Grow and having phenomenal success.
Yeah, and with the price of fertilizer, lime, diesel, everything this year, what better way to get in there and grow a successful food plot at about a third of the cost? Check out Deer Grow at deergrow.com. And we're back.
Heyo.
HUNTR Podcast, episode 134. Nick's still down south.
Back at it. Hope you're having fun, Nick. I'm sure he is.
Have you talked to him lately?
Yeah.
He's alive.
Just checking in. He's alive.
Being a 20-year-old. 20-something-year-old.
Yeah, he's killing it.
Just killing it.
Killing it.
Just going.
I think so.
Yeah, he's producing clips, so I know that.
Yeah.
I see clips coming.
Yeah. Podcasts are dropping all the time, so
yeah.
Well, we see that happen. Nick's alive. That's a bark twice if you're in Milwaukee. He's alive.
There we go. It is... Well, it's June 15th when we're recording this. I don't know when it is. Sometime end of June, probably July.
Mid-June.
When this thing's dropping.
Got some antler growth happening quickly.
It's coming fast, man. It's everybody gets excited about this time, as do I. I think a lot of people fail to realize how little these bucks are moving at this time of year. It literally is like bed here, up, over, food, and back. Especially when we just we're still in a drought. But we finally got some rain, but we're still...
I wouldn't say we're in a drought now. We got.
Oh, we are. I looked at the map.
Oh, the map says we're in a drought.
In a drought.
And that's just based off of amount of rain over a certain amount of time.
Correct.
Yeah. Well, we recently got some good rain.
Yep. And we've got some tonight and next week in the forecast.
We're looking okay.
Yeah, it's starting to make that turn. But
well, dude, I think, not that we want to spend a bunch of time on this, but I think there's a transition that happens that we don't probably talk about because it doesn't affect a hunting season, but that's from spring browse to summer food. I think a lot of people just think, all summer, all antler growth, time frame, soybeans are in the ground.
Sure.
Alfalfa it's perennial.
Yep.
We don't have a ton of alfalfa where I'm at specifically, so I'm gonna say there's been a transition within the past couple of weeks from.
Probably slower than normal too, because those soybeans had kind of been stunted there. Yeah, or we just got ours in the ground. I'm sure maybe we have germination now or soon to be germination.
Yeah.
So it is that. In fact, I was looking. I want to say it was yesterday or 2 days ago. Mississippi State dropped up just a kind of a research project they were doing in northern Mississippi, Alabama, but it essentially was talking about the importance of browse, and that people associate deer and browse in wintertime, in early spring. But if you look at the course of a year, at any given time, browse is at least 30 or 40% of a deer's diet, even in the summertime, or even in the springtime. So, it's kind of the most consistent food source, whereas, mass like acorns vary, forbs vary. Summer stuff. It all varies, but that browse is always a foundational base.
Yeah.
And so, the kind of route there is that how important it is from a timber stand improvement or, just cutting timber or whatever you're hunting.
Different CRP planning.
The fact is you got to get, that browse is a critical piece of how those deer are functioning, and without it, if you're in a place where there isn't browse, likely not going to be nearly as many deer in that area.
Yeah, especially if you don't have the ability to manipulate the habitat with food plots, right? And so very in line with what we're going to talk about with our guest Cody D'Acquisto today.
Yep.
And some really interesting stuff. I guess we'll just jump right into it because it's all going to come out here eventually. I'm not going to set the stage too much. So Cody's been nice enough to join us today, and he's got a really interesting perspective on hunting land without over manipulating it or manipulating it at all, which is a interesting and in a lot of ways different take to the land manager aspect.
Yeah, because I think we all talk about number one, it's time and money, but it's also like where's the line there? I mean, there are you can go from making a food plot to some people are literally manicuring, and we've heard that word probably multiple times from people, especially in the public land side, referred to private landowners as manicured, properties.
Well,
basically.
manicuring and like surveillance, like over in some cases hyper surveillance with trail cameras, as more recently cell cameras, and I think Cody's, it seems like, has tried to do very little of that.
Minimalist.
Very little of that. Minimalist would be maybe a word for it, and I can certainly admire that from a distance. Maybe we'll take something from this.
Well, we've talked about sometimes reflecting back on the times prior to all the technology and everything.
They call those the good old days.
Yeah, and yearning for maybe some of that just simpler life at points. So let's get Cody on.
And you've heard it described. Yeah, I'm sorry. You've heard it said before, like we lack that anymore with all this technology and all the preparation that's put into it. We lack that seeing a big rub, seeing a big scrape, setting up on it, and seeing a buck that you've never seen before come up over this hill, and to have that
it's the mystique about
it. First time, it's like it's almost non-existent in today's day and age.
Yeah, you see him and you're like, nope, no, he is. Know how old he is? Probably know close to what he scores.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a different.
Probably had him named, for the past 3 years. Probably got all the sheds there, and that's
Different
cool
take.
too. There's definitely something to be said for that. But
this is probably the most polarizing topic, I would say, in hunting right now, is this private versus public aspect. And I think talking with Cody today, there's even on the private side, right? There's a lot of different types of people on that end, from the minimalist to the fully out manicured type property.
Well, I think it's more. Yeah, you're right. It's private and public, but I think it's more than that. Like even within, hunting land that you can manipulate, whether it's on land that you own or it's permission. It's the mindset of like there's guys that are like, we hunt with what we have, right? Minimalist. Like we want to read what's there. We want to take advantage of terrain, naturally occurring. And I'm going to build it and they will come. And we
heard that a lot last week, which have been on Bomar's place.
100%.
A lot of build it and they will come type of thing.
Yeah. And there's certainly pros and cons to both, and it's both are hunting. That's the reality.
Yeah.
Some would argue that it's not, but it's an interesting conversation anyways.
All right, let's bring Cody in and get him into this. Well, we appreciate you coming on the HUNTR Podcast today, man. Jared and I sometimes get wrapped up in those kind of pre-podcast things, especially when we were talking, even before that of those topics. We find ourselves getting on one of those concepts and just kind of just straight rabbit holing it. But, it really comes. Go ahead, man.
I was fired up, man. And then we got rolling. And it's like, all right, now be quiet. Hold on. We gotta go into it.
All right, now we're actually gonna start.
It's good, man. I'm jacked to be here.
Well, dude, it's funny because that private land aspect of things, right? Oftentimes, if you're not in that group, right, if you're in your public or in group, you throw all of us into the same pot, right? It's just, you're the public, you're the private land guy. But there's so many different types of people on that side.
Dude, man, if you really look at it, that's why it's crazy to me that there's so many, that there's as many camps as there is. Like we're all hunting whitetails, and like even one thing that we've done, or like the people that it goes along with custom gear and the products we make, we're super aggressive. We have a very tactical side of running a whitetail down. It's very much the opposite of sit and wait. And a lot of the private hunting that you see, or I don't know how it would be split, but there's different aspects. So the cool thing about the gear that we make and the style of hunting that we preach is you can take that style and adapt it anywhere. We have staffers that are out in Idaho in the mountains that are getting it done with that gear. We got staffers that hit public land and only public land. They're very, very, very regimented about that. And then we got guys who have private land. They do the same thing. And when you start to dive into private land versus public land and all that, I think there's so many different ways to skin that cat. And just to breeze by it, and we can touch by it more, but my hat's off to anybody that's getting it done, like period. Right. So like there's there's a bunch of different ways to do that, but these are, we're all after what we're after. Everybody's got their individual goals, and I can go deep into that too, because there's a lot of bashing. There's bashing for size of rack. There's bashing for no size of rack. There's bashing for public, private, whatever. I think it's important that, some of these guys, and when we get into land manipulation, like these guys have worked their ass off to buy a piece of property, and they got the money and they got the means, and they want to make that piece of property a whitetail sanctuary, and they want to put the effort into there, and they want to do the food plots, and by all means, go for it. Like, that's totally, like, there's nothing wrong with that. And hats off to them that they can do that. On the public ground, on the public side of things, there's, obviously you can't do those type of things. I mean, I when I'm scouting public ground, I come across bait piles like you would not see. So there's a lot of people that, teeter that line, but then you also got a guy who might pick up a lease, which is a huge percentage of hunters. Maybe they don't want the competition of other people, but they pick up a lease and they're leasing, Joe Farmer's ground, and they can't go hinge cut trees, and they can't go manipulate it. So they're forced to, deploy a little bit more woodsmanship and kind of just come at it just like a person who was hunting private wood. It's just a different scenario. Like I use this in the road shows a lot, is like, I think people categorize whitetail as like these, like there's different, like they're different. They're all whitetail. I mean, so we're all like you were talking about with your browse talk and stuff. And there's certain things that all whitetail have to do. And when we get down to the specifics of how people are hunting them, it just, it's a different way to kill the same animal.
Yeah. Well, I think the big thing, and it's because of what people see, right? Whether it's on social media or YouTube or whatever, is that, there's this huge push of like, we've talked about it numerous times, like, here's a cornfield, mow half of it down, put a box blind down, sit in it, right? Whereas like all the guys that I watched growing up bow hunting, including my dad, you had to be mobile to kill deer, right? I mean, you didn't just sit in
you'd be surprised, man. This is something that not a lot of people grasp. Like throughout the years, you see the guys who are consistently killing, and most of the general public, and I know this from being in the tree stand industry for my entire life, is like my entire goal and mission throughout my adult life, manufacturing and selling tree stands, is to educate people on, hey, get your ass up and go hunt these deer down. There's it goes back and back. It goes way back. The 20-foot ladder stand set up on the field edge. Like, that's a very ingrained mentality and style. And even you get to the East Coast and you got guys who with the climbers, and don't get me wrong, there's nothing wrong with climbers. Climbers are great, but you can see what it's like, or I can see what it's like to break somebody out of a generational thing that they grew up doing, or sometimes people don't look at this outside of the box. And, I think a big problem with that was old hunting shows and stuff. And it painted this picture, which I think also led to the boom of this public craze and dudes like the hunting public guys, because there was always, that's all you seen was this painted picture of this dude, this celebrity on a manicured piece of ground killing a giant. And it was so out of reach for a lot of dudes. And now that there's like a lot more content of people just getting out, hitting their nearest piece of ground and getting after it, it's become way more in a style that allows you to be active and aggressive while you're hunting. You can by all means sit in the same stand all year and kill a giant. And you can do that every year. You could, but I mean, it's going to probably, your success is going to vary and fluctuate, and you're not going to be as consistent. And, you'll fall off sometimes.
I think I'm going to just make up a number. I think 90+% of like those, how old are you, Cody?
32.
32. So I'm 30. Jeremy's 39. So like we're in our 30s here. So like when we were growing up, it was like, and maybe even a little later, I can remember, help me throw out some names. You got Lee and Tiffany, Bone Collector,
Mark and Terry,
even throw in like your Headhunter group, your, who else?
Winky.
Red Rising type stuff. Well, Winky certainly, but, and Winky's an exception for sure. I think
Whitetail Freaks, Don
and you know what's, so are those guys too. I guess now that I'm saying it out loud, initially what I was going to say is I think like 90% of those were outfitted hunts.
I mean, that was it, right? I mean, it was the bounce, you know?
Yeah, well, so interestingly enough, like, I would agree with you. And even as a kid, I was never into hunting show. Like, even now, the hunting content that I consume is so small, and people get shocked by that when I talk to them personally. But dude, I'm so out of it because of the way it's heading, right? And even when I I think back to a lot of those old time shows, and anybody who was experienced in the field could tell it was an outfitted hunt, or it was a fake emotion.
Well, they weren't hiding it either. They're just, hey, we're here with so-and-so outfitter. They were promoting the outfitter was like main part of the show.
Yep. And it's different, man. And when you got a guy who crushed a 200-inch deer last year, and he's crying over a 105-inch buck, like, I mean, don't get me wrong, teach their own, but it seemed really staged to me. And then a lot of times you even got guys, I mean, obviously hunting over bait and things like that. And it just, I don't know. So that was a big, but there was really nothing else, man. And honestly, Whitetail Addictions, the show that my old man started way back in the day, was the first highlight on an average Joe that wasn't a celebrity.
Yeah.
Like, it was the first time that was something that was like publicized. And then Whitetail Freaks, I think, grabbed that in the coming years after that and kind of tried to do the same thing. But dude, I remember the guys in the crew back then, like, we had plumbers. There was guys who worked as CMAs or CNAs, like nursing assistants. There was a contractor, like, just, it was this crazy group. It almost seemed like misfits, but they weren't celebrities, man. But these are the most stone cold killers that you'd ever meet, and they were unknown of or unheard of, and unknown. So it was really cool, like, to kind of shine that light on some of those people. And the show wasn't about going to an outfitter. The show was about, hey, I work 9 to 5 as a plumber laying pipe, and I bust my ass, and I travel from Alabama to Central Illinois every year just to get a crack at a monster.
Yeah.
And I don't waste I'm fucking dedicated. Like, that was the principle. And that stuff, and watching the old man hunt early on, that shit was ingrained into me, like, right off the bat. Like, it's like that create your own luck concept. I get so much feedback about a lot of people. They sit around and don't do anything when there's plenty of options. If you're as busy as you could be, like, getting yourself to that point, whether it's public, private, whatever, whether it's spending the money on a lease or whether it's traveling to maybe a less pressured area, doing more e-scouting and looking at the map to get yourself in the game. The first step is getting there, right? And if you're not there, you're fucked to begin with. So,
yeah. I mean, I think that's a big thing.
Speaking of us PA boys.
Well, I mean, that's it, right? We talk about it all the time.
Hey, the biggest, don't you try and pull the wool over my eyes, man. I got some buddies in PA that are on some big shit.
I know some of them. Well, dude, it was Pooja that connected us originally.
Who?
Jared Pooja.
Oh yeah.
He was like,
man, it's every year, dude. I get so tempted. I was up camping in the Allegheny too. 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And I'm just like, man, this is such beautiful country, And I started to think to myself of how I would start to break down those mountains, because I'm like, it's just so vast, right? Yeah. And I was just taking some casts in this like, I don't know what river it is or creek or whatever, but and I'm walking past this old timer's little shack, and there's like 195-inch deadhead, just a straight typical magnum, just nailed to the freaking, and I'm like, oh man, they're out here, dude. Like, they're
in PA.
Looking at that ground. Oh yeah, PA. Well, it might have been like the New York PA border, like right in that
way up there,
just outside of Erie or whatever.
Yeah.
But it got me thinking. I'm like, those big pieces of ground, such vast wilderness. And then I get to talk with like thousands of people every year at the Harrisburg show, and we do our Mobile Hunter X United, or our road show out there.
Yep.
It's this get together we do, and it's cool over the years, man. Like, we dive into tactics with these guys out there, and we look at the properties they're hunting, and have them come back the next year and show us pictures of 150, 160-inch deer that hit the ground. It's like, dude, it's awesome. It's cool,
Yeah.
And I think the antler restrictions that happened there, 5-7 years ago, have been just doing wonders. And yeah, man,
they exist, man. We talked about this, I don't know if it was last podcast or two ago. Antler restrictions, huge help, right? in a weird way, also the decreasing number of hunters in the state. I mean, at one point we had 1 million deer hunters. Now we're 700,000. All of these things factor into that, and awareness and education around it. But I mean,
and privatization of land is the other thing we were talking about.
There are giant bucks. They just had to get old. I mean, they've always been able to exist. It's just they didn't make it past 2 years old.
Dude, that's the one thing about the Midwest and the minerals and the soil content and the ag and all that stuff is it's the breeding ground for magnums. Like it's where it happens. I mean, don't get me wrong, there's giants that are killed all up and down the Eastern Shore every year. But if you look at the number of them based off of the number of the Midwest, like you're getting just way catapulted in numbers, and you're just improving your odds getting to a piece like that. And when I talk to a lot of guys who look at coming to the, a lot of East Coast guys do well coming to the Midwest to hunt. I mean, it's like there's a lot more fish in the sea that they're looking, and then where the challenge starts to even out is after you lay down a couple 130, 140 inch deer. Well, then you're looking for that 160. Well, then after that, you've scratched that itch. Well, then you're like, I want a booner. And then, then it starts, okay, all right, now we're starting to bring the, the level back.
And then your bank account starts to go like,
well, this. Actually, when we were talking to your dad was the guy who said, listen, every buck I killed, I wanted to score higher on the next. And I forget, it was a 200 plus that he killed. And then he's like, now what?
Yeah, dude, it can really screw you up, man. And it's something that it's something that took me a while to get over too, because coming up in that atmosphere of like just big deer, and that's
big
all
shoes.
It was about. And not that I was coached in that aspect, but as a young kid, just keeping my eyes open and looking and witnessing that, like that's what I was going off of. So. And in my mind, it's like, okay, that's what this is about. Like, if he's doing that, then I got to do this, or then I got to, same thing with like, just hunting with a bow versus like gun hunting. Like, well, I'm not going to hunt with a gun. What the hell? Like, he's hunting with a bow, so I got to hunt with a bow. Like, and it's there wasn't like that option. And it wasn't, especially growing up in Wisconsin and PA are very, very similar.
Oh, yeah.
The tradition of hunting, and like I think there's that like that old school rooted like deer camps and
yes.
Beer and deer and just shooting. I never got that experience. I've never once been to a deer camp. Never gun hunted a day in my life. No,
wow.
No, and it's just I just kind of witnessed. It was just ingrained into me. Like, no, man, this is a lone wolf sport. This ain't like you don't go out there and have like this is. We get shit done. Like it's about executing a mission. You can't chance a bunch of outside things you can't like control. And it was always really weird for me, man. And it was like a mission to like, okay, well, I want to be the best. I want, and who's like, and in that, whether you're playing football or whatever, you look at the best team and your motivation is to crush that team.
Yeah.
Like, or at least that's how I always look
at
it. I've slowed down a lot in the past years, but like that's the picture that I grew up in. It was just very, very hungry, just very, very inch orientated. I remember shooting my first ever deer, and it was just around Pope and Young, and this saddens me to think about, but I was pissed. I was like the only after. I mean, don't get me wrong, the moment was awesome, and that's what hooked me forever. I was so pumped that the plan worked out, the shot was executed, and I was fired up beyond belief. And that was immediately crushed by this goal that I set to myself that I didn't make. And then I was a failure for not making that goal. And then it was like, well, this next deer you shoot better be 160 inches. And the second buck I ever shot was 160 on the head. And then after that, I was like, well, there ain't no going back from here. It's 160s. Like, if it ain't 160, it ain't getting put down. And like, and it was a very weird mentality for a 14-year-old kid.
Yeah, man.
And even a lot of people that, that I would talk to is like, oh no, I never had that time to like just shoot deer and have fun. I reached that point 3-4 years ago. And oddly, 3-4 years ago when I made that circle and I realized like, man, doing this shit for the wrong reasons. I'm not enjoying it like I used to. And because I enjoy the hunt, man. I enjoy the being in the timber. I enjoy the grind. I enjoy just being very close and one-on-one to the animals and stuff. And when I would like be successful, I wasn't smelling the roses ever. And when I dialed back is when, oddly, I started killing more deer and bigger deer and doing it quicker. And it was like, it was this weird, like kind of balance of like training all those years and like crafting, like just general woodsmanship and understanding deer activity. And it's another thing I talk about. Like a lot of people, there's certain shit you just don't get until you've been inside a shooting range with 40 plus deer, like just that you're trying to kill. And you have to make those moves and you have to hone those skills and when to draw, when you can get away with movement, peripheral, watching them ears, watching that tail. Like those, you can't just walk into the timber as a new hunter and understand that shit. You can't. You got to fall on your face with that stuff and you got to understand it. And more importantly, what people don't realize too, I think new hunters, you have to be paying attention.
Yeah.
You have to be learning and adapting, not just watching a YouTube video on how fucking Joe Schmo says how to do it. Even me, I'm like, take what I'm saying, use it to your advantage. But as soon as it ain't working out for you, ditch it.
Yeah.
Fucking do your own thing. You know, like I've always been that way. And there's people who get it done all sorts of ways. I'm just here to tell you how, like the way that I've spent, 16, 17 years just building this system. And I'm a very system oriented person. So where I'm fortunate is that from the beginning to the end, like that's all, like even with weightlifting and training, it's got to be the same. It's got to be this. There's like an objective, there's a goal, and it's like, bam, notes, bam, do it this way. Bam. Oh, this is the way I set my stand. This is the way I shoot. This is the way I do this. And then it's repetition. And then over time, that's it's you're not even it's instinctual. You're doing the shit and the deer are dying and it's a different map. It's a different playing field every time. And it's just cool.
Yeah, I think what's crazy.
I love it.
What's crazy about it, man, and I think this is what you talk about new hunters now, or even kids or whatever. Is the three of us probably grew up. To your point, like we looked at the big rubs, we looked at the tracks, we found the scrapes, right? We failed a lot more because there was no technology, there were no trail cameras, like these things didn't happen. And I look at kids now and, how many kids you see on social media killing booners like at 7 years old, and it's like I don't know if because they don't have the grind, right? They didn't have the grind early in their life, if they're going to be able to stick with it or have the desire to stick with it.
Dude, oddly enough, like just hearing Cody talk about that, like, especially you're talking about the transition, like, and I want to let you elaborate on this maybe, is the point that you got to, which I assume was one of holding yourself to such a high expectation that the pressure essentially is unbearable. It sucks the fun out of it. I've been there.
Dude, it's 100%.
I've been there, for sure. Well, and here, Cody, what I was gonna say is like you're talking about having success as a kid, and it's like how much we failed. I'm just trying to think, like in my memory, my experience, it's like, dude, and because what Cody was saying, it's like, dude, I had a lot of opportunities at Bucks when I was a kid, and I had no idea what I was doing.
Sure.
A lot, seemingly more than I do now, that I put pressure on myself, and I have information. What's this, and this? It's calculated. I do this. When I was just like walking in from from upwind and just bumbling in, it's like I just have opportunities. I blew them a lot of times, but I had opportunities.
You're in the game.
Well, that's the thing too. Like I preach that big time, is overthinking. And it's because I am such an overthinker. If you let me overthink, like I'll overthink anything every time, whether it's an Instagram post or whether it's a move or whatever. That's where I started, shooting myself in the foot with things like cameras and all that type of stuff. And even scouting and man, it like when so many people, they want all the information and they want the quick information, the quick fix. And it's like that saying, done is better than perfect, right? If I sat there and want, like, a lot of people, you just have to give them that nudge, like, dude, just get out there and do it, man. It's not always gonna, and a lot of times they find more success. And you ever notice how, like, they end up being a lot of time like one buck wonders, but you ever notice how that absolute hammer magnum is shot by some dude that just stumbled out there on a bucket and had no idea what the hell he was doing, didn't know his ass in the hole in the ground. No offense to anybody, but dude, sometimes you just get lucky.
That's it.
And those people get lucky. It's a demeanor. I believe it's a demeanor, and it's an energy they're putting off, for one. They're in no way, shape, or form giving off any sort of predator orientation or vibe or anything, because they're not. They're the furthest thing from a freaking predator there is, and it's just dumb luck, and it's crazy how that happens. And then as soon as that guy gets keyed on, now he's obsessed because he's got a 180-inch buck on the wall, never kills a fucking other deer again.
No.
And doesn't understand how it happened in the first place, and then goes and gets the wrong advices, and then gets in his head about I've seen it happen a lot.
Yeah. Those are the same guys, I think, in that same kind of breath, Cody, is that they'll go in because they're so oblivious to things. They'll be so aggressive, like just over the top aggressive to guys like us who overanalyze everything.
Well, they don't even know they're walking through a bedding area.
Right. And then, but they're able to make the deal happen because they were so damn aggressive. Now, repeat that consistently, it ain't going to happen. Right. But that's just how it worked out.
Well, there's a line there too with being aggressive and pushing the envelope. And I think it's most important. So that can be a dangerous piece of information to somebody who doesn't understand a lot of things and who isn't experienced. And it can also be the one piece of information to create a stone cold killer for the rest of days to come. Like, and I really believe it's knowing how to apply that pressure and applying that right. And more so than anything, being aggressive is not bad whatsoever, as long as you know how to do it and how often to do it. And most importantly, you got to fucking capitalize on it.
Yeah.
So you have to be intentional. You can't, those people, like these guys, the craziest thing I see, even now, you talk about deer's patterns right now, guys are so freaking amped up. Deer are growing racks. They get it. There's guys in there scouting every day, and they're bumping these fucking deer out every day at this time of year. For what, dude? For what are you doing? Just back the fuck up. Don't go in there yet. And it's. I see the same thing happen in season.
Yeah.
It ain't that you can't go walk through that bedding area and kick that deer up. It's you better have a damn plan.
Yeah.
And you better capitalize it when you do it. And then you better not also, if you don't know what you're doing, don't do it, because if you start badgering that deer, being aggressive and applying pressure is totally different than what would you call it? Not badgering, but like assaulting, or not just that constant annoyance. Like that's they won't take that.
No.
They will, and even I think, like, if done properly, right? And now I use this as an example. This is actually it's fresh in my mind, but so last weekend I was doing a road show in Nashville. And before the show, I went on a run. And I usually look for, either I use Onyx or I use like All Trails or something. I just go look for a trail that I can just bomb down. Typically, this is public hunting ground, like 9 times out of 10. And I do a lot of scouting and get a lot of intel from actually just going on runs, right? So I'm down there, and as I'm running through this trail, I kick up, or I run by, and I stand this buck that's bedded on a little like oxbow right by this crit, and it's right off the lake, right? And he stands, and I breeze by. No recollection he's even there. I see him in my peripheral, but I never miss a fucking beat. I never give him any inclination that I seen him get up or anything. But I caught him in my peripheral. I seen he had a rack out past his ears, like a decent buck. And I'm just like, okay, and I do that on a regular basis. If I see a doe, if I see a fawn, I just make note of it. As I'm running, I pull out my phone, I mark that pin on Onyx. As just an experiment, right? So I went and did probably like a half-mile loop, got around back, ran by again, right? Ran by again, same trail. That buck stands up. So now probably 15 minutes, he bedded back down. So he was bedded back down on that trail, on the, like just off that hiking trail in the thick stuff. He bedded back down. So I come running down the same trail. He stood him up again, except this time, right when I got parallel with him, I stopped and I looked at him dead in the eye, and he took off like a bat out of hell.
Yeah.
So he ran out there. Now this right here is capitalizing. So I walked in there. Now I identified where that buck was bedded. I pulled out my Onyx. I looked at the scenario. I seen there was access a quarter of the mile from a public road. That's when I started the game plan. I guarantee, I would bet my left nut on it. The next, if I would have hung a stand there and I would have got in there in the morning with the wind blowing out across that interstate, that buck would have been done. Yeah. Done. And it's just, it's a prime example of how that was unintentional aggression. But now when you flip the script and you go out looking to do that, and you're going out keyed in, like that's an opportunity you can't pass up, right? That happens. But now when I'm going out to scout, I'm looking for that scenario. That's my dream scenario, is for that to happen.
Yeah.
Because then what I can do is I find his safe zone. I've just found where he feels the most comfortable, where he's been bedding up. And especially you can find out more too as you look at that spot. You know, at this particular spot, there was multiple beds that kind of positioned. So you could see it was a couple different ones. He had some good cover. He sees, like, and that's the thing about pressure versus unpressured. A lot of people think that just because the deer is pressured, it makes him harder to kill. I think that's bullshit. I think a deer that's hard to kill is 100% based off of that deer, its temperament, how it reacts to things, has nothing to do with pressure. If a guy was going to argue that, I think then you're telling me that you go way up in the north, you go way up in the mountains in Montana or Idaho or something, and you're telling me like bucks just let you walk up on them and shoot them, giants?
Right.
And those fucking deer are never pressured by people.
Yeah.
All whitetail experience pressure. They're getting pressured from coyotes. They're getting pressured from hunters. They're getting pressured from hikers. Like all they know, they're just on a constant mission to avoid danger, right? And they're only going to leave. This is what I believe. They're only going to leave and go as far as they need to go until they know that they're not in immediate danger. Then they're going to recycle and go back to their business. And they're and that's what's great about tactics like the bump and dump, or tactics like, you know, specifically strategically going into bedding areas. It's because you know that they're there for a reason. That is their safe zone. They've established exit strategies. They've established where they're going to bed based off the wind and the pressure. And if you're good enough to find that spot and then figure out, read the pieces of sign, read the puzzle, figure out where he's entering from there, and you just hang tight and get him when he's coming back, and that is the most lethal ambush.
Yeah.
Now, let me backpedal just a second. People hear this, and this is a big problem. It's like, it took me a long time to perfect this. I fucked up a lot of deer, just kicking them out of their beds and not having a goddamn clue what I was doing,
right,
letting it go too far. Some people find that spot and then they sit on it and they wait for about 5 or 6 days and they go back there and he's not there and they don't. Well, you got to capitalize on those as it is, because, you know, if that buck does abandon that area, you want to be there for that last check. And normally it might take them coming back. Like now, since I go in there and I'm walking around leaving all my scent, if I start freaking messing with stuff, if I start, you know, pushing down, you know, you're leaving all that
yeah,
you're tromping everything. If that buck comes right back, he's going to know that there was a lot more shit going on than just somebody walking down that trail, which is why you got to be there to kill him before he understands and maybe thinks about moving somewhere else.
Yep.
But where people mess it up, I think, is they're too gun-ho. People hear that and they overlook like maybe low-hanging fruit, and they try, like, it's become so crazy. Like everybody wants to like go into the bedding area and kill a deer in the bed and go do, and it became so like, which is awesome. It's great. Like, but sometimes you don't need to do that. And sometimes you don't need to fuck up your bedding area. Cause now let's talk about after that. Let's say both you guys are hunting. One of you does that. Well, now you can anticipate like there's gonna be a lot of commotion in there. You're gonna smoke a deer. So like there's things you got to think about there. But sometimes you can just, if you have that piece of information of where he's bedded, you can also use that. And you're like, oh shit, I didn't know he's bedded right off the field right here. It's hot. It's early. That fucker's probably gonna come right out to this bean field.
Yeah.
Let me just kill him on the bean field instead of go harassing him on his bed, because if he busts you on the edge of the bean field, or if he busts you on that exit trail, odds are he's not going to bed in a different spot.
Yeah.
He's just going to take a different exit trail next time.
Right.
Versus if he busts you in his bedroom, then you're fucked.
Yeah,
then he's going
he's
to go
done.
somewhere else.
Yeah.
Like he ain't letting that. And that's where I think there's also difference. I'm a rambler. You guys are going to realize this, but
You're good.
not that makes, that's a whole different point, but I think there's different levels of getting busted too. And getting busted as you're walking and you're on the ground versus in a tree in an ambush situation. Like,
whether they see you or just smell you. Yeah.
Dude. Oh yeah. Totally different.
Well, I think that I think your running story, one big thing that I take away from that is just the observation, like the aspect of observation. There's so much value to spending time on or near or around like the property that you're going to be hunting. Because, dude, what percentage of deer get killed by? And it's the story of the oldest time. It's the farmer that saw him on the combine, or the person that lived in the house next door. Oh, he's been coming out of. All it is observation, seeing what they're doing and making a move. And I think, non-residents, people that don't live on or near the farms that they hunt are at such a disadvantage, even with cell cams, even with, things that we can use to try to manipulate or whatever. Ultimately, deer hunting just comes down to observing what they're doing and making a move to cut them off. I mean, that's all it is.
Yeah. And, and here's the thing though, this is where I also like, I'm going to agree with you, but then I also like, for my personal, how I look at it personally is, I think there's so much difference and separation from what I just seen right now in versus what I'd see in the fall. The thing that I can't get over in my head, like the door that never shuts, is that I hate getting a piece of intel like that and not being able to capitalize on it. Now, I'd rather have some intel than none, and that's going to help me in knowing that buck's in that area. But I mean, if you start counting the days, in 4 months from now, I have no idea if that buck is still going to be there, if he's going to be.
Yeah.
Oh, no doubt. I guess my statement applies purely to during the hunting season. Literally, it's like I saw him this day, the next day I was there.
Yep, 100%. And that's why it's important that some people, this is a huge key, people take way too much stock in what they're seeing now. And they're so gung-ho and they're so aggressive. And then they wonder why they don't have any luck early season.
Do you think still, Cody?
It happen.
You think still?
I think it's still the age-old thing. I mean,
dude, I think there's more articles that have been written about summer velvet, where'd the bucks go, than any other article.
Yeah, but they don't
in the
listen, man. They put a ladder stand or whatever on the edge of the field because that's where they saw the deer in August. They glassed them in the bean field in September. October comes and everything has changed. The entire landscape has changed, let alone the deer's behavior. And they literally sit on the field and they're like, I don't know.
You think a lot of people are still doing that?
A lot of people listening to this are still doing it.
Hey, keep doing that, please, everybody.
I hear it. I hear it on because I talk to a lot of people, and I'm open to help anybody's scenario as much as I possibly can with the information I have. Like I don't know. I like it. I like diving into things, but it amazes me how many even good buddies of mine that are like, hey, you want to go check? And I'm like, dude, I ain't gonna go look at that right now. I don't care what the hell's going on over there right now. Like, I'm like, go freaking, you go waste your time, man. Like, and that's something about me. Like I gear up. Like I'm so ready. Like when that gun fires, man, I'm going so hard for so long that I ain't burning myself out now. And now if there's ways that I can gather intel, like there's so many things, like talking to farmers and getting those pieces of information, or even I would be more prone to right after a season go scout somewhere just to get eyes on it versus go in the middle of the blistering summer where it's totally different, it's overgrown, whatever. And also the reason I do it though is because subconsciously I found out over the years that the more intel I get, the more it sticks here. So one of my all-time rules for myself that I try and like preach a lot is, dude, when you come in, every time you come into a season or to a property, even if you've hunted that property for 25 years, I believe that you are going to be 20 more times well off as if you come into that property like you've never fucking been there.
Mm-hmm.
Come in there, erase all your previous data, and it sounds stupid. It's like, well, I'm not going to erase all that historic data. I guarantee you will be better off if you do. And what I found is over the years, man, especially cameras were the worst for me. I'd get a picture of a deer that I wanted to kill in an area, and that camera picture would never leave my mind. In the back of my mind, I always knew, and
man.
I would always, I'd always subconsciously resort back to that spot.
Yeah.
Even though I knew it, dude, I would tell you, Jared, oh man, I know he's not there. It's like, and then you'd be like, where are you?
But I got that daylight picture. I'm
hunting over where I got that picture. Like, God, you just told me you knew he wasn't there. So, that's one reason. But
well, dude, and on that point, it's so hard. How do you get that out of your mind? You're like, I have verifiable evidence. Here he was. There he was in daylight. That's the only info I have to go off of. That's solid. And so many people cling to that forever.
That's where you need to get in that's where I think the more you take it back to basics and the more you eliminate all this bullshit like cameras and all these things that I'm telling you, the more it sounds like counterintuitive.
No, I'm with you.
You will build, like I said, man, I want to start off by prefacing, like there's levels to this, right? There's I'm not talking about all camera use. I'm not talking about inventory purposes.
Oh, dude, I'm chuckling. I'm not complete agreement. So we're with you. We're with you.
Well, but I know there's going to be guys out there, even right now, that are like, you motherfucker, you don't know what you're talking about.
Sure.
I hunt 6,000 acres of public mountains and I got to hang cameras. I'm not saying to not hang cameras to narrow your spot down. What I'm saying is this is where I think it's different. If you're hunting 6,000 acres of mountain, you go hang as many fucking cameras as you need to. But when you get that piece of information, when you get your spot narrowed down, now is when I'm telling you to fucking kick them to the curb.
Yeah.
And if you have the time, because all of us are limited on time. No matter what we do, if we work in the industry, let's face it, we all are limited on time. And what I'm talking about is when you've established a piece or you have a piece of property that there's deer there. The deer you want to kill is there in the proximity. I believe you're doing more harm than good by running cameras. What, you're trying to get more pictures of them?
Yeah,
you're trying
exactly.
What you end up doing is you're using the camera as a crutch for good old fashioned, like just getting out there because, and it's attractive because it's quicker. It's fun. It's cool to get the pictures. Like it's cool.
It's a trap though, man. I mean, and I've fallen into it. Yeah, because what I end up doing, especially now with cell cams, right? It's like, well, okay, I got a picture of them 2 weeks ago. There's a good front coming in, but I haven't seen them, so I don't hunt, right? Well, the moment I get them on camera, it's too late. I already blew it.
Well, here's the thing, dude. Here's the thing. He's there. You're just not getting a picture of him.
There's
so many people. If I had $1 for every deer I seen skirt a camera from somebody that was hunting the property with me, easily $10, right? I'm not going to go crazy, but I'd easily have $10 at least, right?
Yeah.
But the thing is cameras only capture that glimpse, that one angle, that one point of view. For one, you're missing the intel on the camera. For two, you're living and dying by the intel on the camera when it's not. And then for three, even the good intel you get from the camera sometimes is mind fucking you and you don't even know it.
Yeah.
Like it's happening constantly. So here's a good example. Last year, I was hunting with a buddy of mine and we're hunting the same farm together. And this guy's a good hunter and I've watched him grow as a hunter for a long time. And I've watched him hone his woodsmanship skills. And this is a guy who, from the get-go, most people don't have this talent, but from the get-go, this dude could get on deer. He was a talented scouter. He had woodsmanship. He knew what he's doing, right? And he's running into a rough patch, and he starts talking about how, next year I'm gonna get a couple cell links, and I think if I can set up this camera, this camera, this, and I'm like, dude, I'm like, why? Why do you want to do that? And he's like, well, just if I was like, dude, let's take this down to the beginning. I said, this deer, he's here. You've seen him twice. You've had 2 encounters. You've been on his ass. Why do you feel like you need a cell camera?
Right.
Like to get him killed? You don't need that shit. You know he's here. You know he's running this trail because you just told me you want to hang the cell camera on that trail because you've seen his track. You cut his track there. Well, what the fuck? Why are you doing it? Well, what it is like people, they get caught in this now. Well, now it's not. It turns into like, well, they they want to like it's about then hunting less, and
they want some sort of
hoping to
validation is what they are looking for too.
So well, that and also like it's such a slippery slope, because then right here it's like, okay, so you're just going to go the route of, we talked about this briefly, but there's guys out there that literally surveillance property now.
Yeah.
They take and they go as much money as they can afford in cell plans. They got 15 cameras out there and they use those to hunt. And like that takes it out of it for me. It's just, it's a total different, like, wouldn't you rather just like, he's there. What more information are you going to get by getting a picture other than now you're getting a real-time benefit? And if you're going to use that real-time benefit,
that's the conversation. That's the line. Well, dude, listen, I'll rattle off, I think, 3 specific scenarios, because there's an undeniable value that cell cameras give, or I call it a benefit or an advantage, where it's like the odds are pretty good of killing the deer based off of these pictures that you've gotten. I'd say one is, a wood block type of scenario where there's one way in, one way out. We've all seen those where it's like, I got a picture of the buck coming back in the morning. He's coming out here. I know it. And it's like, it's during the rut, or he followed a doe in there or whatever. A lot of guys have capitalized on that opportunity. I can't think of a specific one, but I'm probably one of them. I know he went in there. I got a picture of him this morning. He came out and killed him. That's one. Number 2 would be mid to late October scrape hunting. I think weather patterns, obviously, especially rain. I mean, is there any more higher expectation that you can have on like a scrape? If you've monitored it with a camera, he's coming out. I know where it's at. The scrape would be number 2 on, a week-long period in that 3rd week of October. Number 3 is bait, right? And so, we can speculate, hey, I put bait out. There's probably a buck coming in on it. No, I have a picture. He's there every day at 4:30, right? It's a very, very high odds if you can get away with.
Well, in the bait states, we've talked about the cell camera, or even just cameras in general, has created monsters in a lot of these people hunting baits to say, who probably would have shot the 2-year-old 110 that they saw, but now they're like, well, this 4-year-old's now showing up, and so all of a sudden the deer that may have made it through, right, are getting killed because people are holding out because they know that deer's there.
Yeah. Well, and I may be missing some. There's probably more. There's more scenarios than that, but those 3 right there is like that's what keeps guys using cell cameras, right? Because it's literally increasing my odds beyond all the other intel gathering and whatever else I can get from them. But those things right there kill deer.
And it's natural, like it's a time thing too. Everybody is in a hurry to get to the next red light, right? Like like it's always if something can cut, like look at the world we live in nowadays, like. Everything you need Amazon, you need Prime delivery today. You need to get this at the store, or like fast food. Like, dude, there's no patience anymore, and a lot of times, I think everybody's just looking for that. It's the same thing, on a parallel. You go to like a couple years ago, I don't know if it was Garmin or somebody released that bow sight, right?
Yeah.
That aims for you.
Yeah.
So,
it ranges.
So you click the button. Like this slammer's out there at 65 yards. You've never shot 65 yards at a target in your life. You got this new Garmin sight. Maybe you were shooting a 40, 50. Now you can click a button, and that sucker puts that pin right on that for you. Like that type of this type of direction just seems like we're getting away from what we learned and like what we love.
That's the whole
about
conversation, I think, Cody, is the resisting of technology. Because like Jeremy and I say all the time, it's like it's easier to kill a deer today than it ever has been before because of all these technologies and even older, more mature deer in some cases. I mean, dude, we beat into the ground the situation of like a straight wall cartridge rifle in Ohio over a corn pile 100 yards away with a cell camera. Like that's technology at its most deadly. And it's like, where do we want to be on that spectrum is like, I think, a very fair question.
And I mean, not to mention from a state regulation standpoint, right? The landscape level regulations, we are becoming with these tools more efficient at killing deer, right? The baseline of most regulations has not changed, whether it's tag allocations or season lengths or whatever.
Yeah. Right now it's in our court to decide where we want to be, and good luck hoping people will take the high road, right?
Yeah. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Stealth Cam.
Dude, where would we be without our cell cams?
I would definitely be divorced at this point.
Yeah, I hear that.
I mean, the fact is I spent more time checking cameras than I actually did hunting prior to cell cameras. Now, at least, my wife can enjoy me being in the comfort of my own home, buried in my phone, checking those pictures.
Yeah, 100%. And dude, when it comes to Trail cameras and definitely stealth cameras, reliability is, I think, the number one thing that we're looking for. Stealth cam just has a long reputation of reliable cameras, and ultimately that is the most important thing to us. They have to work.
In terms of reliability, there's not a better camera on the market than stealth cam, whether you're talking about the Fusion X, the Reactor, or the DS4K Transmit. And most of them are under $200.
Stealthcam.com, check them out.
That's where like you wonder like where does the line get drawn? I mean, I have cool conversations about this at like shows and stuff all the time with people who are, you know, for, against, whatever, but like where does the line get drawn, man? Like I know there's a lot of drone services now too. Like guys fly over your property with a drone all like for a year, right? And then they give you a blueprint of where your herd's living at this time, where they're I don't know, like, and now you can find deer with drones. How long is it before, like, are they going to allow you to use drones in sea?
100%. We had Mike Yoder on. That's the drone deer recovery guy, and we talked exactly about that. We're like, dude, where is the line on this thing? Like, you know, because Jeremy and I are like, well, you know, we want guys that if there's a dead deer out there, we want it recovered. You know, I think that's okay. What if you throw the drone up and it turns out the thing's alive? Like, okay, are you hunting the animal at that point then? Like, can you go, you know, and then even all the way to like the surveillance and the,
it's
even
wild.
all that is just kind of like, dude, I have no idea. Like where I don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know.
It's wild, man. We're living in a, but which is, you know, and that's where, like I said earlier, you know, I give credit to where credit's due. Like if a guy is using that and that's his tactic, but at the bare root of it for me, like what fires me up, like that doesn't fire me up.
Right.
So like, and you touched on this briefly, but this is something that I think is truly sad that people don't have anymore. And it's why it's the main reason. I can be pissed at whatever, like how things are going, but ultimately, like, dude, if you want to go shoot a buck, if you want to surveillance your camera, if you want to put an actual hardwired Wi-Fi camera on your property and use that to kill it, like I could give two shits. I don't care what you're doing. Mm-hmm. What upsets me, or not upsets me, but what actually it makes me sad is like people, what they don't have anymore is, getting back to my point, is that unknown, right? That it is so exciting. It is so exciting to go into the timber and have no idea what you're going to walk across.
Yeah.
Or not know what's there, or not know what it scores, or if you want to shoot it. Like what it feels like to make that last minute decision and to see a glimpse of a time. This last year, when I hooked into this freaking Magnum 190-inch gross mainframe 8, dude, when I seen that deer at 10 yards, I freaking almost jizzed my pants. Like it was so dude, I'm telling you, man, you don't get that anymore.
Yeah.
You don't, man.
Dude, I seen a glimpse of a tine, and I was like, shooter, grab my bow, and I creep up and I see that fucking rack swing. And I see this huge common base that I had I'm like Joe Rogan in a knockout. I'm like, oh shit, here it is. Like, here he is. Never had any inkling. That right there, that one moment. I got goosebumps right now just thinking about that moment.
Yeah.
For years, dude, I was sitting there like a fucking hamster on a wheel, waiting for, where's the big 165-inch 8? That's the one I'm killing today, or this year. That's the one I'm after. It's the biggest one on the property. He's fucking 4.5, whatever. No sense of adventure, no sense of the unknown, depression when you had a bad year, and then you're just living on this intel. You're just living on chips and fucking you're pulling cards.
That's a great way to put it, man.
Dude, that shit ain't fun, dude.
Well, I mean, that's what drove us when we were younger, right, dude?
No, don't get me wrong. I don't mean to bash it, because I did that for many years.
Not at all.
Dude, not that it's not fun. Don't get me wrong. When you get that target buck, it's awesome, and you're doing it. But dude, the feeling, like when you ditch that stuff and you just walk out there and there's no plan, you're so organically reading the sign that's there, hunting it.
Yeah, I was gonna say you're hunting.
Dude, everything's a surprise. You are actually hunting, and whether you're on a 15-acre piece of property or a 15,000-acre piece of property, like, you know, I mean, there is now the catch. The catch is if you're a dude who is still in that inch thing where you care nothing about inches and you're trying to kill a booner and it does put a disadvantage, because there's, in the last couple of years, like there's been properties that I've smoked 175-inch deer and there was a 190 run around, and it would have been damn nice to know that.
Sure.
But dude, I had a better time. I was able to smell the roses, be in the moment, and just be jacked on that deer and accept it for what it was, which was just a clean freaking hunt, man. Just no, that's kind of why I've always been like against even the gadgets and stuff and like ozonics and not that ozonics doesn't work. Like it's not like ozone works. We know the technology works, but to me, it bogs me down. Like, okay, here now I'm like just taking this extra fucking gadget out in the woods, and man, dude, it's just refreshing to just walk out there, man. Like you talk to these old timers, that's what they had. They just walked out there. They walked out there with their bow. Like I get off work or I get done talking to people and I got my street clothes on and stuff. And that's the most of the hunting I do now. It's just, it's, you know, and then I over the years, like what jacks me up even more now is I try and do shit that's a little bit counterintuitive to like the mainstream. It's super low hunting. Like a lot of the things that people bitch about, like, or say is impossible or say you can't do. I really try and experiment those things, and just try and do things differently, because it's exciting, dude. When you if you hang 5 feet in a tree, 5 feet or 5 yards off a trail, even having does come through there, dude, it trips you like it way on like being in a blind on a field edge or 50 yards off a main trail. Like, dude, it's a different grind, man. It's just, and trying to get those goosebumps on a constant basis is like my mission, man. I want to be in it, dude, and just be jacked.
I think that's the balance, right? Because we've talked about it before. I yearned for that feeling as a kid where it was like, I didn't know, I was just out there hunting, and like you see, back then in Pennsylvania, it was like a 2-year-old 8-point. You're like, holy shit, they're giant, right? To where now, like my expectation, like is, I'm not so caught up in the inches as much as I want to kill mature buck. Right. In certain states or certain places, like if I'm in Ohio, I've got a pretty solid gut feeling that there's a mature buck there that I can harvest. But if I'm in,
that's not a gut feeling. You got pictures of them. Like it's literally
well, but that's what I'm saying. If I start to go, like, where's the fine balance there? Like, how can I know that there's one there without feeling so? Because, dude, I 100%, Cody, I get wrapped up in the intel and I hate it. It ruins my season.
I'm telling, and a lot of people, it's doing the same thing for a lot of people, and they don't know it. And where I would answer your question is, you don't have, like, so a guy like me, I have established pieces of property. I have leases. I hunt on public ground. I hunt on private ground. I hunt on manicured shit. I hunt on not, dude, I'm an opportunity. Like, I'll hunt anywhere, man. Jared calls me and says, hey, dude, I got some good ones running around. You want to come up and hunt? I'm fucking there. Yep. Like that's just the type of dude that I am. But what I would suggest is, if you're on an established piece of ground at all, and when I say established, I mean just you are familiar with it.
Yeah.
And you're familiar with the type of deer it can hold. Yeah. And you're dedicating a certain amount of time to it. Like, that's when I think you can be free to ditch those cameras. Now, if you're looking to acquire a new piece of property, if you're going somewhere out of state, like I remember a couple years ago, I went to Ohio and I went to the hills down there.
Oh yeah.
And it was so vast and so much ground. And I'm just a power scouter. Like, I like scouting. I like looking around. And my mission was to scout until I found deer. Well, it took me 2 freaking days just to get on deer. I could, like, the population down there, and there was so little deer, and I was just walking and finding new access and stuff. That was a point in time where I said to myself, like, fuck, dude, you know what? If you would have brought a couple cameras and you would have just drove around in a truck and at least just satellited some cameras just to figure out and gain those 2 days back, or cut that 2 days down to 1 24-hour period, that would have been way a good benefit in a way that, like, and then once I got that, I'd have just took the cameras down and hunted for the rest of the 4 days I was there. So I think there's always a blend. The cameras are a tool. They should be used as a tool.
Right.
But as soon as they start dictating your every move, throw them fuckers out. Like, that's kind of how I look at it.
Yeah.
And it's a fine line for sure.
You got to be conscious of it too. And you have to know that you got to be wise of that. I used to slip into that. And then I was like, you know what? I'm not using these damn things. And if I do use one, it'll be purely intel purposes. And when I start actually hunting, that thing's gone.
Yeah.
That it's my starting point as an intel. I hang it on a ridge. I get one that cruises through. Okay, I know this buck's coming through this ridge. Now let me hunt and not worry about this camera one bit. Maybe I'll even let it soak, right? And then you can check it after the fact. That's another good key for cameras, I think.
Mm-hmm.
Some guys will hang them and just just dude, pull them at the end. And then they can at least kind of use that as like,
dude, Cody, I do that a lot, like on a daily basis during hunts. Even right now, like I'll pull up and I'll, fortunately these, phone galleries are organized by date. I can just scroll back to today, last year, and I'm like, oh yeah, there he was on this one, and I'm like, I'm playing on moves. Like that's one factor that I'm playing in there. Dude, one interesting thing, like for I guess Jeremy and I to consider is because we both run a lot of cameras right now, and we walk the line. I think of like we're hunting mainly remote places. Like my family farm's 2 hours from here. Jeremy's got same situation, maybe even a little further. So it's not like we're driving around it's not like we can just kind of survey and observe, and we get a lot of enjoyment out of, like, even I was just telling Jeremy today, I'm like, oh, I can't wait to get these cameras out in 2 weeks to see what we got. I'm super pumped, and like, so my enjoyment from like the intel and the camera perspective is for 6-8 months out of the year, where it's like, oh geez, I'm just constantly like waking up at night, I'm checking a thing, I'm excited that he was there, there's a new buck that showed up, And undoubtedly, I think you would lose that without having the cameras. You can just, and I don't know which is better. Maybe I could sit there and just daydream about what's showing up and speculate.
Dude, see, that's the power. Like,
when you bring my imagination back, right?
Well, dude, and it can work. See, if I told you, so you're going up to your piece 2.5 hours away, right?
Yeah, 2 hours.
If I told you there's no camera intel, if I'm like, dude, there's some giants up in these woods, man. Like, dude, there's tanks up there. Like, in your mind,
that's a big part of it, dude. I think you gotta have the security, like, because there isn't always, right? Like, I know a lot of guys before cameras, dude. Guys would hunt these pieces of property, and they're like, "I'm 150 or bust," and like, there ain't a 150 there. Like, there isn't.
Yeah, but that's where, like, I think it's important. You are gonna hunt your ass off versus being bummed out of what you think you know. So there's like, I've seen, oh man, this is it's so hard for me, but I've seen people either not hunt a property or not sit it based off of what they thought they know by the handfuls of cameras. And then when
anybody like that, Jerry?
Yeah, I'm guilty. Right here. You're talking to one.
And then when they have a buddy who doesn't give two shits and just looking to like get out there, or they have a neighbor kill 180-inch slammer, they're sitting there just kicking themselves in the ass. And that happens all the time, because the one thing you got to remember is, even if you never give up cameras and you continue to run those day in, day out, have the intel, you cannot replace that for actual physical scouting. So if you're going to run them, you got to do both. And where I say is, if you're going to do both anyway, I would rather be on the fresh. Now, that might help you connect the dots of like what sign was made by what deer.
Yep.
But I look at it as like, if I'm going on a 4-day hunt if I'm going with you, Jared, we're going up on 4-day hunt. I don't give a shit what's on the intel. I'm just going to hunt until I see something I want. But that all comes to like what you're looking for too. If I have a dead goal of like, I need this inch, it's a different story. But like where I'm at in my point of like, dude, anything, like, don't get me wrong, I'm still hunting big deer. I'm not trying to kill small deer.
Experience.
Dude, as soon as if that sucker trips my trigger, I'm letting him have it. And I want to, and it also jacks me up too, because it's like a gamble. When one comes in and you're ooh, should I
you don't know.
Dude, that jacks you up even on top of it. And sometimes you end the season with, damn, I fucked up. I should have shot that deer.
Yeah.
But that's even better.
Yeah. And
because
I think that's the big thing that's missing now, right? I mean, most people that have, let's say you got 100 acres or 150, almost every buck that's on that damn piece of property right now.
Dude, it can be so depressing.
Yeah.
It can be depressing. Dude, I've seen my old man get into lumps like that, where he's just sitting around, he's just sitting around like a freaking bump on a log. And I'm like, and we don't like share intel or anything. And we're not too like, we're not like chummy talking all the time, but I'm like, what the fuck's up? And he's just no fucking big ones, and I'm like, and I have no recollection. So I don't look at pictures, don't look at any cameras, don't know what's going on. And I'm like, dude, that's just sad. Like it makes me, I'm like, dude, and I know damn well shit can show up. Shit can come from a neighbor's property that might not have been there. Some external pressure. Same thing with like, some big piece of like you get on a piece of property that's connected to any sort of major system like a river or railroad tracks or even, I talked to a buddy last year who was hunting this piece right off a big set of tracks. November's coming out. I'm like, dude, you camp your fucking ass on those tracks, dude. I don't care what you think you have on the camera. Some shit's showing up. Like, and around here, that shit could be a 190-inch Magnum, right? A couple days later, and this was on a camera, but 170 probably gross deer. Probably came from freaking 3 miles away. Got on those tracks and just ripped, man. Was scent checking all those wood lots, and that's the shit that's like that golden ticket out there that like is can spark that fuel to keep going, to whereas else you're like, oh man, I don't know, maybe I'll go somewhere else. I don't have the pictures.
Well, I was gonna say that's the corner that ends up happening. And it's like, let's say you've got one or two go-to spots, your cameras are there, a deer you want isn't there. Now what the fuck do you do? Like, what do you do?
Well, it probably varies throughout the year. Like, do you, so no cameras, no, not like I'm trying to put myself in this mindset. And I have a question for you on that too. But like come the rut, like obviously that's the time of the year that it's like, there's rut spots. Like there's spots that are just good every year. It may not be in the bedroom of a buck that you want or that you saw. Like, do you find yourself just settling back into those rut spots like during November?
I do.
Not settling in like in a derogatory term, but you know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I always eat shit in November, to tell you the truth, because I'm just so like more of a routine, looking for like a pattern to intercept, and like that's kind of my go-to.
Oh yeah, like you got to get away from patterns in November. That ain't happening.
Yeah, so I just like I've tried to, but I'm also impatient. So I can't. I've never sat all day. I can't do it. Like
you were just preaching to us earlier about patience.
Yeah, dude, and that's where like
internal battle.
Dude, it's such a battle for me because I'm impatient, keeps me constantly looking for what's going on at that exact moment in time. So what I do, so even just like November, I'll be scouting, hanging multiple stands throughout the day, moving, looking for where those deer are, and I keep going. I never stop. I just keep going, hunt here for a little while, keep going. If I can find a killer pinch, I'll hit that to where I think like, the prime time would be, and I'll try it. But I'm just moving, man. I'm like I just try not to get like patterned like I would pattern something.
Here's what I was going to ask you. You and your dad hunt a lot of the same ground?
Sometimes.
And he's running cameras?
Oh, yeah.
Okay. And so does it ever happen like you guys are Sunday evening dinner? He's like, hey, Cud, check this guy out. Oh, shows you a 180. Will you look at it? Will you consider it?
That fucker wouldn't show me a 180. You kidding me? He's a fucking...
What if he's already tagged out?
That fucker's ruthless. No, trust me,
tags,
he's got plenty. Yeah, oh yeah, he's got a couple tags.
He's straight ruthless.
Oh, dude, yeah.
Wouldn't show you a 180. Interesting.
That information is going to the grave, but
he's over there buzzing his phone. He's looking
like,
over.
Dad, what was that? He's like, no, that's not.
You know what the sickening thing, or the thing is like sometimes, if I would be around him at the season, or like we cross paths on like a maybe going in or going out, like. I know that. Like, I see him. Like, he's got the cameras out.
You guys don't coordinate at all. Like, is it just you guys hunting the property? Or is there other guys or?
Yeah. So there's, family, friends, and buddies of his.
Right. And you guys talk. You're like, hey, I'm gonna hunt so and so. I'm over on the 80 or whatever.
We should keep in touch a little bit better.
You both just pull it at the same time.
It's the fucking Wild West out here, man. I'm telling you, man. We you would think father and son, like we'd be out there sitting together.
No, I met your dad. I never thought that.
Oh, okay. All right. Okay. Well, a lot of people, they think like, father and son, but yes, I'm glad. So you understand what I'm doing.
I get it.
But yeah, so usually, man, it's like, it's very competitive. Ever since I got to the point where like we're both looking for the biggest deer here. Now, I think it's definitely more of an advantage to him now that I'm not running cameras or anything. Cause I just don't. But there's a lot of time. Every year we end up like it's just natural, man. Because even though he runs cameras, that motherfucker scouts his ass off.
Oh yeah.
So that's the trade-off. Like most people will just abandon that and run cameras. He won't. Like so regardless of what he's doing on his cameras and what I see, and don't get me wrong, there's been times where I walk past or I found just the hammer trail, and then I see a cat. I'm like, motherfucker, I wonder what was on. I wonder what the fuck he got on that thing. Like, but, you know, like that'll happen. But
Temptation.
I tell you, man, we always end up in the same spot, and we end up ramming like because it's like because if you're reading the sign, dude, and you're trying to get in the best spot, I don't care, man. You can be. I'll start a fucking 2 miles over this way. And before I know it, dude, I'm sitting in a stand and he's walking in, or he's sitting in a stand and I'm walking in, and it's like, motherfucker, like I'm hunting here, dude. Like, so it gets
great minds.
You know, yeah, dude, it does get pretty wild. But I go out of state a lot too, and and we try and, you know, our fortunately, like we do have a pretty vast, you know, we hunt a vast area. So if I know he's hunting an area, like I can keep to some other area or whatever. But yeah.
Well, it's cool that you have enough there that you can kind of like have that camaraderie, that competition without like, you know, you're saying you step on each other's toes, but it's not like you're hunting a 40 and it's like there's 2 spots to hunt.
It's definitely not that. But and if you'll see, like, you know, some of these bigger pieces, or when you get into like especially farm country and like a lot of ag and mixed, and we got a lot of like rock bluffs and real bluffy things like this on the Mississippi. And what people don't understand too, that might be from a different area, is even in a given property, like you almost have herds of deer. Like they group up, they populate certain areas. So like, you know, here 1 mile away, you could be hunting totally different deer that are going completely the opposite way, and vice versa, and coming to the center. Or so it really gets there's been so actually a few years back, dude, this one chapped the ass a little bit, but I was hunting this fucker hard, man. He was a hammer, and he was actually not even on the property. I had to go seek kind of permission, and I was way off bounds, and he was a smart bastard, dude, and he was living out in the open, and I came close a couple times. I actually sent an arrow through his brisket, and Dad ended up smoking that thing 2 miles away in November. Like he started cruising and got on that main draw that creek branch that loops through and then ends up, and it was just like, so shit like that happens too. So even though that deer would have freaking never been there at any other time, and it's like, you know, finding those trying to find deer outside of the trail camera pockets and stuff. So
that makes sense, man. It's crazy. I think when you get into it, you know, a lot of people listen to this obviously are hunting all over the whitetail range, whether it's Pennsylvania, Wisconsin, Ohio, Kentucky, you know, and I think that the one thing they're probably thinking, just like I am, is like, man, you know, one, knowing he's there takes a lot of that surprise element out of it, but it also is the like fact, like, you know, I know that I've got a limited amount of time to hunt, right? I'm not wasting time hunting a ghost, which we all probably have felt, especially you, Cody. I mean, if you're telling me, you know, you pull those cameras, at some point you got to think you're chasing a ghost.
Yeah, you got to, you have to get over that 100%. That's totally a hit. That's totally a thing you have to get over in your mind. And this is a big thing I tell guys about, even nighttime sign, when they're not running cameras, or there's so many guys out there doing what they need to do, but they're so discouraged because they're not getting it done or seeing the deer. Like that deer could be funneling through at nighttime or after they leave or before they get there and stuff like that. It's the same concept with, you have to go in, you have to commit, you have to have a process, and you have to trust that process. Mm-hmm. It's just like getting on a diet, dude. Right? I don't know if any, like, I know you freaking train, man. You've been on some diets. Mm-hmm. So it's like getting on that diet, and a week into it, you're like, fuck this diet. I ain't losing any weight. I ain't gaining any weight. This is bullshit. And you abandon the diet. Well, it's never going to work, dude. You got to commit to that diet, and you got to push through that initial crazy phase in your mind. And once you do that, and don't get me wrong, throughout the season, like even last year, dude, there's tons of times where I think like, fuck, man, what am I doing here? Like, it'd be really nice to know if there was a slammer here. It's like, especially like, dude, last year I had 165er walk by video, didn't take the opportunity, like, you know, and I'm like, I know there's a bigger one here. Well, you could bet your ass 4 days later, when the movement fucking stalled and I didn't see shit, I was like, you're a dumb motherfucker, Cody. Like, you should have took that opportunity. You could be in Iowa right now. Things start going to your head, and then you gotta check yourself, and you just gotta be like, no, you made the right call. Just keep at it, dude. Keep on that pace. And on that exact story, I think it wasn't until like 9 days later, but I ended up for gut shooting or I got a poor shot on a bigger buck, and it was just like, dude, see, it was assurance. You held in there, and it doesn't always happen like that, but you got to see it through,
So what states are you focusing on each year, Cody? I mean, Iowa.
What part of Iowa are you guys in?
So we're in like central-ish, not central, sorry, east central.
Okay.
So right where like the bluffs start meeting the ag stuff.
Okay.
I usually try and focus on like the tri-state, Illinois, Wisconsin, Iowa.
Yeah.
For like, I like to get down to like for a couple years, like I start to dabble in and I branch out. Like I might hit Missouri or I might hit Kansas or I might hit but usually beyond Ohio, like the other year, I was actually the first year I went to Ohio, I went a little further out there.
Yep.
But I like to kind of stay close. I keep it in that tri-state, based off of what I got going on. And then, there's in each given one of those states, there's, there could be 4 or 5 properties that I'm looking at or that I'm actively hunting or, I do believe too that you need to kind of, the more you spread yourself thin, the worse you're gonna do. So so a lot of times
we suffer from that for sure.
Yeah. Like a lot of times I don't even hunt. I think last year I didn't hunt Iowa until November. Like the entire month of October, I might have got, or maybe 2 sits because I was so focused on Southern Illinois. I was like, no, I'm going down. Or same thing with like, if I put it in my head, like, okay, I'm going to Missouri for opener. Like we attack Missouri until we're done.
Yeah.
And then we go somewhere else, or we. So I kind of I've never been up to the Northeast by you guys. I was actually contemplating going there last year. Buddy of mine hunts some big mountainous stuff there, and I'm super pumped to get out there. I would just love to experience it and see the hills and shit. But yeah, a lot of my stuff focuses around the tri-state area, and then I expand from there. And that is honestly though 100% because I know that that's where the biggest concentration of the biggest deer are.
Yeah.
And, like my whole, like one of the goals that I met, was this dream buck in my mind. And I checked that off the list a couple of years ago. And after that, it was like, all right, man, I want big ones, but like, dude, it's about getting out there, enjoying it. And I still don't like, I still want the challenge and the pressure and then the gamble of passing deer up and getting that big deer. Like if I want meat, I'll go shoot a doe.
Right.
But like, dude, I'm just like, it's just what I'm after. If it was about shooting just a Pope and Young buck or just a racked buck, and it was like, you couldn't give me enough tags, man. But it wouldn't mean as much to me because to walk into a piece of property and identify the sign to get a crack at a decent deer is just, that process ends very quickly. Where you start to expand that and make it harder and make it more challenging and is you start to add in age, you start to add in rack size, you start to add in, or if your goal is to go down to Alabama and shoot a Pope and Young, that's totally different than being where I'm at, so
sure.
You always got to balance that, or where you guys are at. You wouldn't sit there and hold out for 190-inch deer all year.
No,
it'd be dumb. I mean, but at the same time,
so
I think, yeah. Well, I mean, you have to take that into account too.
Yeah, what's realistic in your expectations for the area?
Expectations and goals too. Like if your ultimate goal, if hands down your dream is to shoot the world record with a bow, well, as awesome as Pennsylvania is, like I would tell you that any time you spend in Pennsylvania is dumb. Like if that's your goal, so I think you have to look at that. I mean, because even, don't get me wrong, Pennsylvania's freaking state record is a slammer, and it could happen. But I mean, you're trying for stars to line up, man. You got to get into the area that consistently produces those size of deer.
I think people need to be I don't know, optimistic / like real, like know the area. Like I think I know guys that use that as a crutch. Like they'll be like, well, I'm in PA. I'm just gonna, 2-year-olds. That's the best they get around here. It's like, no, they get better.
Oh yeah.
But they want to, and same's true on our farm and stuff. It's like, it's easy to try to convince yourself, well, that 3-year-old is they all get shot at or whatever, and it's like, so I'm gonna, and so there's a mental battle on that side too, where it's kind of like, well, if.
Do you think it would be harder? I mean, talking about like with what Cody's kind of strategy is. Like in a lot of cases, you're saying, hey, here's some of the 5-year-olds we're shooting or something. Because a lot of guys can't recognize that shit, right? I mean, if they see a big buck coming through, they just, big buck.
Well, dude, me too. Frankly, the cameras give you a lot of opportunity to age. I mean, so as far as a herd management, not having cameras puts you at a huge advantage. I think even Cody, you would agree. Yes, because you can identify the animals. The question, sorry, I won't get off track. What is your question?
No. It's just those guys not being able to, or you not being able to, in some cases, guide them.
It's hard.
Yeah, it makes it really so
on the hoof.
There's a lot of deer that would get shot that maybe with cameras you probably wouldn't have shot because you would have known them more.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, you get. Yeah. I mean, well, the thing is too, like you get but then again, man, I mean, all this stuff is guesstimation.
It is,
and a lot of times,
history with the deer is really the only way to know.
Yeah,
and what you're saying, I think happens probably just as much even when guys have pictures.
I think it does too.
There's a lot of ground shrinkage. Like you might be looking at a picture and it was infrared and whatever, or it looks like it. You've looked at it so much, dude. You're convincing yourself it's bigger than what it is.
You know what? And there is something. There is not a term assigned. I'm going to assign deer IQ. Like there is just people for whatever. And I don't know, like if we're really good at it or other people are just really bad at it. But they're like. Some people just cannot identify. They cannot look at a picture and look at a deer and be like, same deer. They cannot in their mind, and it's so weird for me because, and I'm not bragging, but it's just literally like, from last year, or even if I haven't seen a deer for 2 years, like I can guess with pretty high odds. As soon as I see a buck coming in, even in June, I'm like, that's that deer, 100%. That's where he's at. That's the age he is. That I can recognize him. A lot of guys can't do that.
That comes with time, dude. I think that's like. It's so time. It's even like, people, the same thing with like when you get really into score and you start really analyzing what these deer have and whatever.
152 and 3/8.
Yeah. You can just be like, oh yeah, that, he might go 160, but probably 157 because he's, he's a little weak in his brow. And you can do it quick just because it's like, so I think that just comes with experience and even too, like a lot of guys, you get the fishing stories. And I seen this deer.
Oh, dude,
I'm telling you, like these
him and her. No, they didn't.
Dude,
no, they didn't.
No, she didn't. Yeah, but even, dude, it's like when you see 150-inch frame coming through the timber.
Yeah, giant.
It looks fucking big, dude. And it's even man. I pick up my bow. A couple times, like this year, just seeing something like you get that first glimpse and he's got the cage, but Knight might have everything else. Like, so it really puts you in perspective though, and puts you in check that like when you see an actual Boone and Crockett frame, oh my God, dude, it's like your heart misses a fucking beat, dude. You're talking, this is different, man. Like a lot of people throw, I seen a Booner on the side of the road. Like, did you?
Yeah, did you?
Or did you see a 140-inch deer that had some tines or whatever that might have grossed maybe 170 if on a fucking lucky day? A true Boone and Crockett that possesses a 170-inch frame, like a net frame.
It's a fucking giant.
Dude, oh my God, dude. Yeah. Anybody who's scored deer or seen them and a lot of people don't make that correlation because they're a freaking rare, it's a rarity. They're not running around everywhere, and it's a different thing. So with that being said, I think as many people as has those cameras that think they have the best knowledge of the age and the size, a lot of people still fuck up.
Well, you see it. You see it online. Like somebody will say, got this 140, and you're like, where? Like
you see that tape
that 120. I mean, behind it, like it's just
that's people. That's that people don't know how to score deer. Is what that is.
Yeah.
And they're staring at a picture. And they still can't do it.
Well, that fifth mass measurement was got me that extra 5 inches.
Yeah.
Oh shit.
That outside spread really bought me the extra.
The tip spread really brought me up there. Like,
well, and that's even on that same breath. And I mean, I'll put think of passing like 150-inch deer. Like you said, Cody, seeing a 150-inch deer coming through the timber and passing that deer. There are not many bow hunters out there in the country that can do it. They just can't.
Yeah, it takes a lot for that, because, and I always look at it like this. Like, I used to use the term passing too, but I've fucked up on so many deer that I just call it not taking the opportunity, or like not taking the whatever,
Right.
like, because like,
pass.
I can't guarantee that I would have executed that shot. But when you have a deer 15,
I'm gonna pass. I'm gonna like to pass.
That's good.
No, thanks. But when you have that deer at 15-yard broadside, you like to think you'd be composed.
We'd all like to
smoke
think.
them, but the thing is like, to get to that level, it takes there's not many, because it takes having a lot of deer of that caliber. I think it takes having a very stable, rooted goal in your mind.
Sure.
And it takes the discipline of a freaking like a Buddhist or some, you know what I'm saying? Like it's a very hard thing to do. And if you combine that with, a lot of people think they're ready for that step, and then when that 150 shows up, it's like, nope. They abandon the hardness that they had. Like you said, 170 or bust. That is said a lot.
Yeah.
But until you start busting, it starts to become a lot more real, and then you start to realize, like, oh shit, a 170 is.
Yeah. And
I think and either you get tricked, or you're just having a rough season, and seasons beat you down, dude. Like, I don't think,
no doubt, man.
I'm gonna say, I don't think there is any other activity that you willingly put yourself through that beats you down emotionally, other than having like maybe a fucked up girlfriend, that beats you down emotionally like a whitetail season does.
Yeah.
Dude, man, you are on, like they say, I think, like the old man used to say, like the highest of highs, lowest of lows. You go from dragging your ass out there, it's 30 days in, not seeing anything, to looking your head up and seeing a magnum, seeing your opportunity, and you tell yourself, it's it. This is the time. This is what I've been doing. And that fucker comes in and makes a scrape at 6 yards, and you shoot over his back, and he runs off. He runs off and looks at you and gives you that middle finger, and you know you're never gonna see him again. But dude, you want to talk about fucking roller coaster? Yeah. Then just dragging your ass back out there, just to have that happen again 2 weeks later, or to never, dude. I'm telling you, man, it's torture. But that is that's the shit that brings us back there. We don't know it.
No doubt, man.
It's that we want that pain, and we don't know it.
Yeah.
You think you wanted to smoke that thing? No, you wanted to bust your ass another 3 weeks and not get anything, because then you're gonna be more pissed for next year. Like, dude, I'm telling you, it's just, and that's where I feel, dude, it's freaking, it's gnarly.
I mean,
man.
the ones I fucked up are the ones that haunt me. You know, there's one of these deer on this table. Like, I can visualize burying this broadhead in this deer's, femur, the head of his femur, over and over on a 180-inch deer, and it just, I remember that clearer than a booner I've shot.
Yeah,
dude.
It's just how it is.
Well, we talk all the time about what breeds a lifelong passion for bow hunting, and it's like, dude, the people that failed, like for the first 10, 15 years of it's like, man, dude. I get the same way, Jeremy. I just remember failure after failure after failure,
it, man.
And I'm more ate up with it than ever before. It's like that I've missed more than I've ever killed successfully, and I am, I'm obsessed.
Yeah,
dude, it's the torture, man. It's, somebody asked me that the other day, like, hey, how would you say you're sitting, like, with all the deer you got on the wall, like, versus all the deer you fucked up on? And I was like, and like, I guess they were asking me in the sense of like, you got to be doing better, right? And I was like, absolutely not.
No way.
Absolutely not. Not even close, dude. Oh my God.
Yeah.
And it's just, I do believe it's that ignites a fire, a deep burning fire, more than any opening day buck you connect on, or any just
easy.
And that's where I lump the things into, like, if I was sitting there, would I love to go smash a giant, like looking at my trail cam, looking at my phone, watching him hit a scrape, and then knowing that, like, okay, yeah, I'll just sneak in there, like. But all in all, then I think when you're counting the chips and you're looking back over the years at that deer versus some of the deer that you really had to dig deep for, I just don't think it's ever gonna amount to the same feeling. It just won't.
I think that's a really good point. We were talking today. We were talking land, and we are thinking, Columbus area, Columbus, Ohio area. You know that if you find the right 5 acres in Columbus, you put a corn pile out, there's a good chance you can get a 200-inch deer on camera.
Game over. City
right?
Bucks,
but at the same time, like, how much can you do that before, like, I mean, is that really hunting, or are you just killing something?
Well,
I mean, that's what it comes down to.
You're on a mission for a 200-inch deer at that point.
But like, once you accomplish that mission, right? And you didn't really work for it that hard.
I can see, I think it's okay to have gone down even the road, Cody, that you did, and you've come full circle, and maybe we're even still in it. It's like, just because you relied heavily on cameras and killed some deer, that way, isn't a bad thing.
I don't think so.
I think, but the realization of ultimately what you want out of the experience.
Well, where's that line? Like, that's what I'm saying.
It can change. I think.
But you're talking. See, I think you guys you're talking two different things, because I agree. What you're saying is like, when you put yourself in those type of scenarios, like, is the prize really worth it? Or like, to that point, if your goal is a 200-inch deer, well, when it's an easy 200, or when it's an easy layup, or somebody gives you that extra point that you didn't like make, and they're like, oh, well, we'll just give you that one, or like, I guess it's not to that point, but I know.
I mean, it's still a 200-incher, right? But it's just how you got there.
Well, you're talking too, because I've seen that, because there are guys who put out the feelers. Like, there's guys with a lot of money who are contacted when a deer is found, and they come there and they just hop in a stand and they shoot it. And it's a 200-inch deer, but like, if one of you guys were to smoke a 200-inch deer up in the mountains of Pennsylvania, like, versus one of these guys who hunts, like, I think there's a big crew that does a lot of city hunting, like in the Georgia area.
Yeah.
And they kill hammer deer, but these are park deer that just like, and I mean, like, not pen deer. I mean, they're just park.
Yeah, you're talking about the Seek One guys. We know who you're talking about.
Yeah, city park or whatever. I'm just saying that sounds like what you're talking about. Is we're like, okay,
exactly.
We got a sweet little honey hole here in the back of a Target, or a very rich neighborhood.
Yeah.
And these deer are just getting to be very old.
Yeah.
They're around a lot of people. All we really got to do is put a corn pile there and smoke them.
Yeah.
It's what you could say the same thing about a guy who puts up a box blind with a corn pile.
Yeah, and I'm not saying you're not going to get excited about it. It's at some point, like, let's say you do that, even if it's a 170, right? You do that in Columbus, you kill 3, 4, 5 170s in a row on 5 acres over a corn pile with a crossbow, whatever, right? Like, at some point, you're just like, I don't know if you want to keep doing it.
Let me ask you this: Why can't you do both? Why can't you say, all right, I've got this awesome farm. Like, if it's Cody, I'm in Iowa.
Sure.
I don't have to run cameras. I know here's my mission here. I'm just gonna hunt my balls off. I'm gonna do my thing here. But I also really want to kill a 200-inch deer. I've got this sick spot. Just it's this 5-acre thing outside of Columbus. It's a Bay State. I can get it. I think I can get it done.
Mm-hmm. I don't think anybody's gonna guilt you for that. I mean, do it.
Well, yeah. I mean, screw everybody else, but just to be okay with yourself. It's like, can I do both?
Yes. I think that's the expectation of your area, right? Like, if you come to Pennsylvania and kill a 160 in the mountains, right, with your bow, and then you go to Columbus and kill a 200 over a corn pile, like, those are both successes in their own ways.
Yeah. And it's interesting how I feel about that. Yeah, go ahead.
But I do think that 160 in the mountains would mean way more to you.
I agree.
Than that 200.
I've got a 160.
I agree.
I've got a 162 over Jared's shoulder that I killed in the mountains here. I've killed a 175 in Kansas, and this 160 like, I'll relive that in my head every day. Just because of the rarity of it.
Yeah.
Not that the Booner wasn't special. It's just
an appreciation for how.
It's just different.
And that's where I think it's important that, like, it's all based on really, like, I think many people get lost of what they actually want, and they get so tied in to conform to this or the best gear or whatever. Like, what do you want? And I didn't realize this for a while. Like, and what do you want out of hunting? What do you want out of that kill? What do you want out of that experience too? So if if a wall full of, like, when I look at my wall, like I recount all, dude, I go back, man. It's so vividly. I go back to every single one, and some of them mean more than others, but ultimately, like, when I croak, I want a wall of those super proud adventure type hunts that I just know I busted ass and I did it, and that's just what I'm looking for.
Yeah.
And even like, so I shot one a couple years ago that it's nowhere near like my biggest deer. I think the thing, it's probably like 160 inches, and but dude, the hunt was so wild, man. And it was just one of those things where I seen it tripped my trigger, and I'm like, and that thing is up there, man. It's up there in the experiences and the time I had and how it went down. And it doesn't, I used to think that inches was all that mattered with that. And not like I'm getting soft or anything. I'm gonna start shooting 120-inch deer out in Iowa, but I'm just saying like I have deer that mean more to me that score less than some.
I think that's the experience. And dude, that's where we kind of get
super valuable.
We don't pick on the public land guys for this, right? And so I'm not going to harp on it too much, but think about, like, if you're only hunting public land, right? And 3/4 of your season is basically getting fucked by other guys, like hunters that are coming in and walking in on you, and
metaphorically, of course.
Metaphorically,
right?
yeah, metaphorically. But just think, like, so 3/4 of your season is just other people screwing up your hunt, your strategy. Like, at some point, that's got to wear mentally on you to, like, dude, do I want to keep doing this shit?
Well, and that's where I think it's important. I think, like you mentioned, the biggest thing that I think private and public, where everybody starts to get their panties in a bunch, is there's a lot of public guys who use that as a crutch as well.
Yep.
I've seen the same thing with recurve guys. I come across a recurve guy, and we start talking, hey man, what'd you kill this year? And I'm like, oh yeah, I killed this or whatever. Oh, what'd you get? Like, oh, I didn't get anything, but I'm hunting with a recurve. Or dude, there's always the, oh yeah, I didn't connect this year, but I'm hunting all public ground. And it's like, oh, okay. Like, thanks for that. I just thought we were in a conversation. I'm just saying, like that doesn't define you, for one. Like, I think if you're going to pick up the trad bow, if you're going to pick up a recurve, everybody knows that's there's more things you have to overcome.
Yeah, absolutely.
It's just one of those things. So, but don't use it as a crutch.
Right.
Don't use that as your excuse for not hunting hard enough or not getting it done. Same thing with public land. If you are hunting a piece of public land that you are getting, quote unquote, fucked by all the people that are coming in there, and you're having dude, go to a different piece of ground and stop bitching. Like, everybody wants to, they want, then the first thing they're going to do, that person at the end of the year is going to talk about how hunting public is so much harder than hunting private. And they're going to bash 100%. Private guys, when you could have, for one, just put in a little extra effort, found maybe a less pressured piece of public, because they're out there. There's guys who got, like, there's so many avenues now. A couple of my really good friends hunt nothing but public, and they're like adamant about that. And we bash each other all the time, or we give each other shit. And I'll go hunt public with them. And I'll be back on and they're, oh, you go back to the private piece or whatever, like, that type of thing. Yeah. So, and dude, I'm telling you, some of the pieces that I've been on are like, dude, sanctuary type thing. And it's just, you just got to do your diligence and get in the right spot, and don't go, like, you have to adapt, man. You got to move, you got to do research, you got to, or, even if it means leaving the state or leaving the area, or checking a smaller piece, checking a bigger piece, go there when on maybe a holiday where, dude, there's so many things. There's more you have to deal with, hands down, 100%. Because when you're on a private piece of ground, you don't have to account for a tribe of squirrel hunters coming through and just annihilating the timber. And like, that's, we all understand that, we get that. But the pursuit, and like what you're doing, I think you need to be more keyed in with that. And you need to just identify that, do a stop there, analyze the situation. Like, dude, I'm just going to be beating my head against the wall. Let me go check this 300 acres instead, and keep moving, keep trying to create an opportunity. And then when the season's done, like any true, like these hardcore dudes that are getting it done out there, or not getting it done, the guys who are really good hunters never have ever, I heard them once use that but in their sentence at the end of the year.
Yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like even like, a dude I was talking to down in West Virginia, big mountain hunter, very successful guy, doesn't kill every year though. Like, every other year for sure. And a lot of times back to back, but never do you hear him when he doesn't get one down say, well, I am hunting the mountains of West Virginia with a longbow. Like, just to let you guys know, like there's no excuse, because he knows. He knows. That's what
he signed up for.
Yeah. Exactly. And he's spent the time and he's got the sweat equity in those pieces and in those mountains, and he's figured it out, man. And he's escaped that pressure. And that pressure isn't everywhere,
It's a fine line. I'm all for like embracing the challenge of public land. Like I think it's really cool, but yeah, the second it turns into there's a but at the end of the sentence, or certainly, I don't think there should be bashing for.
Well, I just don't want it to be
and not that it just happens that direction either,
Yeah, the descriptor of like when you talk about hunting and deer hunting and chasing whitetails and stuff, the descriptor is always using the crutch of like all these people in public land and stuff. Like, dude, when I hunt, even if I'm hunting,
where the trigger gets flipped though is when they're like, well, it's my deer's better because I killed it off of public land.
Yeah, well, and it's because I don't want, if I'm going out and hunting, even in public land, I don't want to be around anybody, right? That's the last thing I want to do is find people coming in. Like, it ruins the hunt. Like, and for you to say, well, that's just public land, it's like, well, fuck that. No, I don't want that. That ruined my hunt. Like, the whole point was for me to go out here, be one-on-one with this buck, and not have people come in on me.
Sure. No, I don't think nobody wants that. I don't think,
dude. I think
there's not a single person out there that's excited by it. No, there are people that embrace the challenge.
Embrace that side,
and that's
of it.
great. I think that's totally okay. I don't think we embrace it as much as others, right? No. I think we'd rather find another situation.
That's exactly.
Yeah, most people are trying to definitely get away from that hustle and bustle for sure. But I think an overlooked tactic too that even I've talked with guys about extensively, and I just correlate it to hunting like a very pressured lease, or if I'm going to go, like a lot of people, sometimes they, you got to use that, or even like this running trail I was just talking about. Like there's a lot of people on there. That buck was so close to the road. And I guess, and a lot of times the big impression is like, I got to
go far.
6 miles.
Yeah, I got to go deep.
6 miles in there, but dude, it's so situational.
Yeah.
And depending on where you're at, what state, some pieces, like I remember hunting down in on public in Kansas, and it was awesome because there's that landowner program, right? That walk-on program.
Yep, walk-in only.
And I remember, dude, checking my map midway there, and like 3 pieces of property lit up, and I'm like, what? And I'm like, is this legit? I asked the dude, a local. He's like, oh yeah. He's like, as they enroll their farm, like yeah. So right there, you're looking at a 300 rectangular piece that's never been hunted. It just hit the new update, dude. I went there first day. I seen a 165-inch buck on the back end of that thing working a scrape line, and it was like it was great. I'm like, this is public stuff, like, and they were popping up all over. Now I'm in a remote spot of Kansas, but like,
sure.
There is like if public's what you want and you want that, like there's good things to be had there.
Yeah.
And then there's also like public right outside of huge areas, like big metropolitan areas that everybody's flooding to, that get so much damn pressure that are a pain in the ass. And
trash.
And most guys who are successful on public just avoid those.
Yep, you have to.
We're all for public access. Like I think that the PLOTS program in the Dakotas, the walk-in access in Kansas is awesome. I wish there was a lot more of that. Like, dude, I don't want.
And we've hunted Allegheny National Forest. We've hunted Shawnee over in Southern Illinois. Like, I mean, we've been on public ground in a lot of places.
Ultimately, dude, I don't want anybody to have like that. Have to deal with that. I want everybody to have a great hunting experience, but it's just, that's the reality. There's limited property, there's limited access, there's a lot of hunters.
That's it. Yeah.
Yep. And you got to expand that scope, man. I mean, if you're in one of those spots that's got real pressure, you got to make some moves, man. You got to plan some vacation. You got to get out of state or find some of those pieces that are less pressured, or go the other route and start to look into door knocking. Like some people are like, hey man, knock for permission. But I know that out there even some of that's frowned upon. Like they look at that as a lesser objective because it's still not public. But it's like, okay, like what
yeah, what do you want?
Yeah, I mean,
it's fine if you want to be pure public, but then you can't bitch when it goes wrong. I mean, that's the whole point of it. The HUNTR Podcast is brought to you by Hoyt Archery.
Dude, where would we be without our Hoyt bows?
Probably shooting crossbows.
or a Matthews, yeah.
One and the same.
Yeah.
But in all seriousness, we love being Hoyt guys because you stand out. When you're in this room full of other people that shoot these other types of bows, I feel like the Hoyt guys just stick out.
Dude, it's just a legit bow. I mean, especially that carbon riser, man. I mean, I know that they've got several other aluminum lines as well, but for me, I'm shooting that RX5 in the carbon model. They've since come out with the RX7, and I can't tell you how much I love being a Hoyt guy amongst a sea full of Matthews guys. So we're out there, I think, proving them wrong, shooting 80 pounds and killing stuff.
Hey, man, if you want to get serious, get Hoyt.
You know what's funny, dude, is I said that generally speaking, I think nobody wants to be like running into people. That may not be true. I think that I've definitely seen guys set up right next to you because they're like, oh, must be a good spot.
Yeah,
they're looking for guys.
Dude, there's some nuances around the public thing. It is funny that you said it, but I mean, I've talked to several when we were at ATA this past year. Oh, how the season go, and literally before they even like tell me their name, they tell me they're a public land hunter. I'm like. Okay, cool.
Let me guess. Let me guess. You have a saddle. Okay, yeah, got
it. I was like, okay, yeah. And it's just weird because it's like, I mean, dude, growing up,
just to let you know, I got a prosthetic foot.
Yeah, exactly.
Before we start talking about what I got this season.
I mean, dude, I grew up hunting.
It's almost like a political affiliation. It's like, let me guess, you have saddle. Let me guess, you shoot a Matthews. Let me guess, you have first light. Let me guess.
It's weird, man, when you get into those conversations because it's almost like before I tell you how it went, let me lay this disclaimer out, right? Because I don't want you to judge me based on what I'm about to tell you before you know that it's all on public. It'd be like saying, okay, my dad killed, what was your dad, like 162-inch mainframe 8. It'd be like saying, well, before I tell you this, it was on private, and, we do bait on there.
Yeah.
Like, that's, like, you have to, and it's like, okay. Yeah, I was like, well, what did he kill? Like, you're going to show, it's just a weird disclaimer on things.
Yeah.
And it's cool because, I mean, dude, that community is tight. That public land, like, a saddle hunter community is very, very tight. But it's we
want to know. And it's funny how that question comes to mind because, dude, and it is because I catch myself doing it, and maybe it's a bad thing. It's like, but like when people tell me right here, oh, this guy killed a giant, I'm like, bow or gun? I want to know.
Oh yeah, no doubt. Man.
Not that I'm like, not that I'm gonna belittle that or speak down on that situation, but in my mind, I'm like, okay, now I have a frame of reference for what actually happened here.
Sure.
And it is a very different thing. That's the reality.
Well,
yeah.
I mean. Yeah, I would have to say too. I mean that where you get into bow hunting versus.
Well, the important thing though, it doesn't make it wrong at all. It just it gives you information on the situation. You're like, okay, I get it.
Yeah. Well, and there's a reason that a deer, like record book wise and all these things. There's a reason gun season's only a week. There's a reason bow season's
100%.
90 days. There's a reason that a Boone and Crockett with a bow is a different, it's like, I mean, there's like that's
there's a reason there's men and women's sports.
I mean, it's different. They are different things.
Yeah.
And when you talk about like there is, I have heard the argument there, which I don't even think I don't even understand how people have that argument about like they want gun and bow to be the same. Like it's completely. It's just,
the resource can't handle it. That's a conservational.
Well, it's not even the same thing. Like you want to talk about, and if you talk about like an effort thing or like when your effective range is that far and that like you just
it's not the same thing. It doesn't make gun hunting a bad thing. There's definitely a time. Same with crossbow. Same with Well,
that's what I was saying. I mean, you talk about your trad bow guy, right? If somebody says, "Hey, you can only hunt the first 2 weeks of the season if you shoot a trad bow," well, yeah, it's fucking harder. I get it. Like right. I and I'm gonna try to train myself.
I can start in August with a slingshot.
Yeah, crossbow is not as hard as a compound bow. It's just not.
Right.
You know, and so like it's common sense, right? That there are things like that.
Yeah. It's weird that people even argue that. Like,
dude, it is out of control. My only argument with them is my 5-year-old killed a deer with a crossbow. That is the only argument I need when you tell me that a compound and a crossbow are the exact same thing. It's not possible. He could not kill a doe with a compound bow at 5.
I'm with Cody. It's
So
just like how can you
so-
even have the argument?
So that camp exists. There's actually
Oh, dude.
It does, but it's not. I mean, it's not like
Dude,
a
that
legitimate.
camp exists deep.
I don't.
You'll
think
hear him
so.
right now. Just because we said that, there will be plenty of people say, "Oh, they're back on the crossbow thing." Da, 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 da.
I mean, we're not saying it's.
They're saying that it is the exact same as compounds.
Well, it's definitely not. I mean,
I'm just telling you that camp exists. Like almost all crossbow guys, that is the camp.
Yeah.
That's why they believe that it should be in archery season.
That's wild.
That's crazy. It's just it would be the same thing saying, okay, my compound's the same as a recurve or a longbow. It's not. In no freaking way. It's not even close.
We openly admit that. Like, yeah, it's way harder to kill
way harder
a deer with a traditional bow. There's no doubt. There's no doubt.
That's the argument. There is no you can't even counter it besides that. That is literally okay, here's my response.
Yeah.
Argument over.
It's hard to justify that because it's a different weapon. It's like there's it's
yeah.
And like you said, it's I think the crossbow. I mean, I don't know. I guess I wouldn't even know. What is the effective range of a crossbow nowadays? Like, what are we looking at?
I mean,
it depends whose hands it's in. I mean, just like a bow or a gun. But I mean
80 yards.
Well, yeah, and in the right hands, a compound bow would be as well. I don't know literally if you talk purely accuracy, like if there was a way to mount the bow like on a fixed thing and then put the
so take the user air out of it.
Take the user air out of it. I don't know the different, but that is the main thing. Is like with a long bow, a stand up vertical bow. Like the human element is the main thing.
Sure.
You know, I think that's why we say, wow, it's so much harder because you have to control your body. You know, you have to have control over it with a crossbow. It removes that. You still have to aim and you still have to have some control over it, but at a much less degree.
Yeah, I mean, I'm much more consistent if I shot a crossbow at 80 yards than my compound at 80 yards.
I would think
I would say that I shoot my compound a lot. And I'm still would not be close.
In composure too. I mean, like in a killing situation, like I would almost think crossbow would be in like a shotgun category then.
Right.
You're essentially you have something you don't have to
a muzzle loader somewhere along there.
Yep. I mean, you're aiming, everything's ready for you. You don't have to pull anything back. You don't have to overcome any nerves to, and you don't have there's less calculation, like less maybe. Yeah, I don't know, man. That just seems odd. It seems odd that there's a big.
I'm tired of talking about it. I'm tired of
hearing.
I am tired of hearing that it's
is.
the same thing because it's not. But it's. I know some great guys that shoot. Are some really great guys.
Sure.
It's obviously not saying anything to the character.
I think
of people
it goes back to we talked earlier about us becoming more lethal hunters, and per some of the past discussions we've had, Ohio's archery kill is 70% crossbows. 70%.
Dude, that is bizarre.
And listen,
is that
Cody,
nuts?
It's that technological advancement, in the form of crossbows, paired with these other things. I shared with you earlier, like the ultimate situation of like the straight wall cartridge rifles that are legal in Ohio now over a corn pile, which is legal in Ohio over the cell cam. So some of those tactics we use, here and there, but like that to bring them all together, it's like, it's deadly.
It's lethal.
And we should ask ourselves, like, should some of that be backed off on? And I think that it should.
Dude, I can't believe that, dude.
70%.
Yeah,
no, given
legit.
some of those guys would come back to, like, if they banned crossbows, right? Some of those guys would come back to compounds because they still want to hunt. It's just,
dude, I don't think they should ban cross. I don't think that at all. I don't think that it should be in exactly the same capacity as vertical bows.
yeah.
I'm all for crossbows, but it's great, and certainly even all season long, I think some people, some certain situations should be able to use that.
Absolutely.
Well, weren't they trying to put like crossbow kills in the same record book as archery kills too, or something?
Yeah, because they want it to be the same as archery.
I don't know.
Yeah. See, because I don't know. That's a little different too. That's,
But even think back, and I don't remember what maybe it was like the Excaliburs, like in the early 2000s, that had like it was like a recurve limb. You know what I'm talking? I mean, dude, those things were not that accurate past 30 yards.
Yeah.
Now flip the script to
Today,
like today's
Ravens,
like a Raven or a these freaking things are 80 to 100 yards with a 3x9 scope on them. Like it's just a whole. This is the way that all of a sudden we became way more lethal with technology advancements, but nothing else changed.
How come all the giants that you see on the ground, you never see the crossbow in the picture?
And it was a crossbow.
Well, like there's never anything in the picture.
Yeah.
It's like, I don't know, man. It's just one of those things. Like I remember a couple giants got killed.
I think subconsciously, dude, you want people to, like with a bow, you want people to see that you kill it with a bow. It's like a level of you're like, I killed it with a bow.
The new Indiana record, I don't know if it made if it is world record or number 2. I think it's like number 2 archery, right?
Okay.
Was killed with a crossbow 2 years ago, whatever. Giant, and again, you see that early fall picture, like everything's right, but then there's one thing that's off. It's just so hard to think about it that way. And again, it's not saying that weapon shouldn't have its place, but you can't put it in the same category.
I know a bunch of guys well, maybe not a bunch, but I do know a handful of people who hunt with crossbows due to disability, which is like, dude,
we're all
no brainer,
100%. Like, but like, when a fully capable dude is getting a crossbow now to make it easier, just like he's getting that sight or surveillancing the like that's where we're getting in that same. Oh well, dude, if I don't even have to pull this thing back and I can have this sucker sighted into 80 and I can and it's an ease thing, and it's just taking another challenge out of what is so awesome and what is tough, dude. It's tough, man. It's tough to kill these things with a bow.
And there's a crutch for that too. It's always, I don't have the time to practice.
Well, and that's where it's opportunity. We just want opportunity. We just want opportunity.
If you don't have time to practice, you probably shouldn't hunt.
I mean, that's what
that's reality.
I mean, that is the reality, and that is an argument. Weapon. I completely agree. Yeah, I mean there's too much of a rabbit hole to go down. But the bottom line is the fact that, when people say like, well, it shouldn't matter to you, it's a shared resource, right? I mean, so if 70% of the Ohio archery kill is getting killed by a crossbow, that affects me as the compound guy, and it affects the longbow and recurve guy as well.
Seems like we can't get through a podcast without without landing on it some way or another, but
just how it is, man.
Yeah,
it is what it is. But
we spent a lot of time in Ohio, and I think it's affecting the state of Ohio more than any other, and so it's near.
Although I think Kansas is the new one.
Kansas is close behind it.
Yeah. I think it's affecting Kansas dramatically.
I had no idea, man. Like I said before, I'm always kind of outside of the little outside.
You Iowa guys.
The info bubble, but like, oh my God, that did shock me.
Yeah, it's a giant percentage, and yeah, I mean it is what it is, right? It's just.
Well, dude, Pennsylvania. This shocked me. Pennsylvania has the highest number of archery hunters in the country.
Yep, 334,000.
I knew that. Yeah.
The most. What's next? Minnesota.
Michigan.
That was Minnesota.
Minnesota, Michigan, Wisconsin are all up there too.
I was going to say Minnesota beat out Michigan?
No, I think it was Michigan, Wisconsin, Minnesota to follow.
Yeah, all the Minnesota guys leave.
Yeah.
We see those.
They flood.
Dude, when we go to like Kansas or out of state, it's like Minnesota. All the license plates. It's crazy. I'm like, these dudes will travel.
Missionary.
Shout out to the Minnesota guys.
Yeah, dude, they go. Yeah. Those boys hunt.
They'll travel.
Yeah.
Have a bow, we'll travel.
Yeah, there's a lot of hunters up in that Wisconsin, Michigan area, big time.
Crazy. Well, Cody, we appreciate you coming on, dude. We stole a bunch of your afternoon, and but it's fun, man. It's cool to hear. I think it's refreshing, especially for me, because I've been fighting this, like, how do I get back to kind of those instinct roots of things, and
giving us some good things to
utilize the technology that you have, but at the same time, the moment you depend on it, you're screwed. Like that, you're putting yourself in a bad position, or at least for disappointment, I think is the easiest way to describe it.
Yeah, man, it's been a blast, dude. I was looking forward to getting on here, chatting with you guys. I'm all for it, man. I just love, man. I'm passionate about this. I've been doing it for a long time, and Yeah, dude, it's awesome.
Well, I will say from a lot of the stuff that Jared and I have watched and listened from you, we are very mobile guys in terms of the way that we hunt. I mean, we are run and gun, first sit, first kill type. I mean, we go after it, and you know, it's something that it takes time to build on that. And I mean, we're still learning about it, but it for sure is our, you know, come to love style of chasing whitetails for sure.
Check this out, Cody. You'll appreciate this as a tree stand, you know, lifeline guy. I lost that. My wedding ring got caught on a tree stand my first year of marriage and ripped it off.
Oh my God.
Karma is telling you something.
How the heck?
October 22nd, this tree stand had little peaks and valleys on the sticks. I hung the first one. I hung the second one. I was climbing down to get the third, and I was only a foot off the ground. I leapt off, caught right underneath there, and ripped it most of the way off.
Just lost the whole damn thing right down to the.
Well, it was hanging by. I'll text you some pictures. But
Dude,
they took it off that night, stitched it up, and I was in a stand like 3 days later.
Now that's freaking dedication right there.
Yeah. Well, it was October 22nd. I wasn't gonna miss it.
See, right there, man. That's how you know. That's a diehard right there. Oh my God, dude, that's gnarly.
Yeah.
See, that's why I tell my wife, hey, I can't wear wedding rings. They're dangerous.
Get you one of these. Get you a rubber boy.
Yeah, you know, I had one of those, dude, and I tried it out for a while. But something like, dude, fingers, man, it just gets me.
Which one did you get?
I think I had a Quelo, maybe.
This is a Groove Life, and honestly, who knows? They make these things for 14 cents a piece. I think it's like $30 up front, and then
you lose them or rip them like all the time though, right?
And it's a lifetime replacement, so I just pay shipping. This is my 8th or 9th one, but dude, it feels weird not to have it on, so I recommend the Groove Life.
Yeah.
Even if it's on the other hand.
Yeah, on whichever finger you can get it on. So.
Oh shit. Yeah, man. I know that, like you said, the mobile hunting though, it's just one of those things where it's a skill you got to hone like anything else. But the more you do it, the more you get into that groove and comfortable with that stuff, and it creates so much more opportunities. I advocate for that for anywhere you are.
Bring the game to you, man. That's the way to do it.
Oh yeah.
Sweet.
Cool. Well, we appreciate it, brother, and you know, we'll have to catch up here later in the season.
Yeah, been a pleasure, man.
Awesome. Thanks for having me, guys.
Yeah, buddy.
Thanks, dude.
Very cool.
Yeah. I mean, he's on to something there. I mean, you can see it in his eyes, the pure, like, just enjoyment he gets out of, like, when it all comes together. It's where's that, because I don't know, obviously we haven't killed a whole shitload of 160s, right? Mm-hmm. So I don't think we're there yet. Mm-hmm. But where do you find that happy medium between using camera technology, let's say, to locate the buck? Like, okay, there is a 5-year-old that I want to kill. And then, you know, to his point, maybe you still have it out, but you just, you know, the problem with cell cams is you can't just put it out of your mind. It's freaking right there. Yeah. It's at the edge of my fingertips.
And it's addicting. I mean, dude, I'm
checking it all the time.
One camera running. I'm like, I gotta check it constantly.
Yeah. And so that becomes the issue when it's like, well, if I know he's there, how do I put it out of my mind to just hunt, but maybe still have that camera collecting data to me? Because I like having that information. What I don't want to do is defeat the purpose of the cell cam and go in and swap it out and put a regular camera. Like, I don't want to have to do that or disturb it if it's been sitting for, 3 or 4 months.
It's a tough thing, dude.
There's an algorithm there or something.
And I laid out 3 of them. You know, the cell cameras absolutely kill deer, but they also keep deer in the woods.
It keeps me out of the woods.
It also that's what I mean.
Keeps me out.
That's what I mean. And it's like I don't know. I don't know the answer to how do you use it 100% to your advantage and also not let it keep you out of the wood. Work to your detriment. Mm-hmm. And even in fairness, asking the question of like how much do I want it to help me? I don't know. That question might be on a scale. It might be different. I don't know. I don't know what the answer is. I think it's just you can ask yourself as you're going through like situation to situation, and even year to year, you're like, do I feel good about this? Is this what I want to do? Is this how I want to? And
I do
hunt?
think to his point, as absentee landowners or leases or public we're hunting, I mean, golden. Yeah. We can't be there. I mean, so just even like when we would go out and do our mock scrapes in July and stuff and set up the camera, just let it eat.
Gotta have them. Gotta have
critical.
Well, and even he would say, this is literally what I'm not putting words in his mouth. He's like, he would almost be like, you roll in day one, pull the cameras, or just don't.
Once you know you're going to hunt
them at all. Just like
once you know you're going to hunt, just go, because that's the key. There is that, for all of us listening, right? We have limited time to hunt, right? And so, and that's what I was trying to get out with the whole ghost that, like, you can't hunt a ghost for 7 days on your Kansas hunt. If you do, I mean, it's wasted. Now, in retrospect, you may not have known you were hunting a ghost. If you pull that camera, you don't have that intel. But you want to give yourself the best opportunity to at least be in the game. We say it all the time. I just want to be in the game. I don't care if I'm not like right on top of them, but if I'm in the game, then I gave it everything I needed to give it. That's the fine line.
The hunt and the ghost thing, I think you're referring to using the cell cameras to like say, well, he's moving or he's not.
No, not that far. No. I'm just wanting to know, when I go in there to hunt, when we go to Kansas, he's there somewhere. His presence is there.
How long ago?
I mean, I would say fairly recent.
That's what I mean. It's
within at least a week.
That's
Is that over the line?
I don't know. No, I mean, I don't think so. That is the scale though. Because literally, like the ultimate, the closest you can get is you can be in the tree over the camera and you're getting a picture.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'm not saying that.
Boom, he's dead. You stretch it out.
It's a week,
a day, a week, a month, well, whatever. Not that I don't think that has anything to do with fairness, or I'm not talking ethics or anything, but it's just,
Because I don't know if when we go, and I use Kansas just because like how we hunt our farms is a little bit different close by, but when we go to Kansas, like obviously we have cell cams running, and like the one thing I remember is like you and me and my dad and Pat were like ready to take a nap because we just get there, camera blows up, and I'm like, keep moving, go, and we get stuff on, and like you could look at that and say, well, I mean that's a fine line.
What are you supposed to do? Not go hunt?
Exactly. I mean, and I say that to the point we were going to go hunt there anyways.
Yeah.
Right. It's not like we weren't going to hunt there and now we saw them. Now we're going to hunt there. It's just, how far do you push that boundaries to? And I'll say I'm guilty of it. I don't think I've ever really killed one off of it that way. But I've seen deer on camera and I'm like, I better hunt tonight. Or you were in a tree.
Oh, dude, for years in Ohio, I'd run a camera over corn, and there he was. Okay, I'm going in next night. Like, he's been here every day at 4:30, and like, it didn't work out.
I mean, the closest that I got was you were in the stand as your buck in Kansas came by the camera, and you shot. Now, did that have any effect on why you were like?
100% it did. 100%. Yeah, because we're like, well, we've got a pattern on this deer.
He's on the tram. He's on the tram.
Yeah, camera killed that deer. Camera killed a lot of deer that we've killed,
It's, it all comes back into that lethal thought process of what equipment's doing. But I think, to Cody's point, and credit to him, and he's probably just at a point where, he's killed a lot of big bucks. So now it's the experience. For a lot of us, we may never get to that point.
Yeah.
We may always want some strategic angle to have that edge because we're about to hunt for a week and that's all we got. That's my vacation.
I do think it comes with abundant access. I think, admittedly, so, Cody's got some great places to hunt in Iowa, the best place to hunt in the world.
Mm-hmm.
And so,
sure,
he's got some luxuries that maybe a lot of people can't afford. That's just reality.
Odds of us passing a 165 because we think there's a bigger deer on the property we're hunting if we haven't monitored it is rare.
So it's one thing to say, okay, I've got whatever many acres in Iowa, and I'm going to have success. I'm going to be in bucks, but that's not always the case. So, I mean, I guess you have to take this conversation and apply it.
If anything, I think there's a really good, there's two things to be had there. Number one, I think relying less on them when you're ready to hunt is probably better. One, because, there is an instant disappointment if you're going to hunt an area and you're like, man, I just haven't got him for the last 3 days. And like, you almost go in there somewhat defeated, right? So, or
you don't hunt it.
Yeah. And I'm a firm believer of that mental condition that you're in walking in is going to set up on if you're going to be successful or not. I think the second thing is, to your point, the not hunting. I mean, those cameras have kept me out of the woods numerous times when I should have been in there killing a deer.
Yeah, same.
And it's just, and again,
whether
part of
it kept me out, or I'm definitely guilty of that first one, dude, of just being down because I'm not getting pictures of deer.
Yeah, he's not there. He's disappeared. Like, I've tried everything. I disappeared. Versus like just using my intuition of, I know he's usually here. This is the best pinch point. That's where I should hunt.
Dude, it's common. Got another deer season coming. Hard to believe. Like, in
is
a
hard
month
to
of June,
believe.
it's like, oh, it seems so far away, but it's like, dude,
We're rounding that corner.
I told
right
you this
now.
morning, I was like, I get a little bit of cold front after this rain here we just got. I'm like, nips are a little perky.
Yeah. Yeah, it's just, I mean, we're rounding that corner. The season's there. It is an interesting, the one thing that I, and it's weird because I say like, oh, I wish I could do that. But I think everybody gets that feeling when he says, I saw that like tine move, and like just the mystique of a giant buck in an area that you know is there, but you don't know is there. And that takes me back to how I started hunting. Is like you saw a big rub or you had a big open scrape and you're like, all right, I know there's a good buck, and you just didn't know. And then boom, when it all comes together, you're like, holy shit, he lives here. Like he is alive. There he is. That mystique undoubtedly is leaving the hunting community like a freight train because of things like cell cameras and technology. We know everything.
Yeah.
We just know everything. And I'm not saying that's a bad thing, but not having that kind of mystery feeling when you're out there and that element of surprise, that feeling is probably what kept most of us still hunting today.
Yeah, no doubt.
So it's an interesting thing to say, where's that line of what you want to use and how you want to use it. Like, I still would love to know that there's a buck that I want to hunt on there. At the same time, do I want to know everybody that's on there? Do I want to know every deer that's on there? Do I know?
I don't think you do. I don't, because
Yeah.
I've definitely, and I not that I've gone cameraless by any means. Like, we still run a lot of cameras. I think it's a huge
We
tool.
cover a lot of ground too in a lot of states.
Huge tool, but there definitely was a time, like on our own family farm, where I had pictures of every deer.
Mm-hmm.
Every deer. We didn't shoot anything. We didn't see anything that I didn't know was there.
Mm-hmm.
And that was cool because it was like, well, I really was trying to employ some management tactics. I was like, I really want to shoot this age class of deer. And like, undoubtedly, having prior information or knowledge of a deer helps in that situation. You don't have to make a decision. Is he 3 or 4? Is he,
Mm-hmm.
very few people can make that decision on the hoof. So having that information helps, but there was never any surprises. There was never any like,
it's like, oh, yep, there he is.
there he is. And it was exciting. Don't get me wrong. It was exciting.
Sure,
to
once you see him, yeah.
there he is in the flesh, and there's a lot of excitement. Every time I had a good picture of him, there was something there. So, I don't know. I can't say they're inherently evil.
It's not. It's just, how far do you want to go?
Yeah.
And that's a personal decision. And the cool thing, at least about it from a cell cam size, is how far you want to go with it versus me. Like, it's not going to affect us as much as maybe the weapon you use versus the weapon I use, or how many I kill versus how many you kill. So it is a cool aspect in that. But yeah, I mean, it's definitely something that I think it's still maybe the best tool out there, bar none, from a hunting standpoint to scout and when you can't be there. But how well it functions in order to kill the animal, that's the question.
Yeah. That is the question.
And I'll let you...
To be or not to be.
I'll let you interpret it yourself after that. So, anyways, we appreciate Cody for coming on. Really cool conversation. I can just, like, sometime I'm going to be sitting in my stand in, like, late October and picture Andre and Cody, like, pulling up to the property at the same time and looking at each other and saying, motherfucker.
Pretty funny.
So, but yeah, I mean, talk about two, like, stone cold killers, though.
Yeah.
Those two dudes are just, I mean,
getting after
be
it.
a fly on the wall when they're in the same room in like October or November would be
He said my
wild.
dad doesn't share any information with me. Can you imagine?
Yeah, he's probably teabagging his dad's trail cameras as he goes by.
Yeah,
so
that's funny.
But yeah, cool conversation, and we'll see y'all next week.
Later.
Take me